Vince, you muted yourself to start the show, man.
I did. I muted myself because I'm too loud and obnoxious over here right now. Because clearly, if you watch the pregame show, you know that we won this game because of what I wore today. Okay. Bottom line, end of discussion. And Stymie, I believe, agrees with me. He says Vince needs to wear the white hoodie and hat every week.
Yeah.
So I told everybody that I have officially gone down the rabbit hole of fandom where I believe what I wear will affect the outcome of the game. Like, that is where I was at this morning when I was getting dressed. And
you're like that little kid. You remember that Roy Schneider movie where that little kid would sit at Tigers games and go like this for his favorite player, and then you hit a home run? Yeah.
I mean, it is what it is. Notre Dame got a big win today. What was it, 41-24?
41-24, and it was over the number 16 ranked Syracuse Orange, and honestly, it wasn't that close.
I agree. Can we get Clemson to be ranked 16 next week? Is that possible?
Well, here's what I said to Ryan Robertson when we were walking. I said, if I'm Jack Swarbrick, I'm calling the AD at Clemson saying, hey, can we switch? We'll come to your place next week, and then you come to South Bend next year, because this Notre Dame team, for whatever reason, when they go on the road, they play much better. And this was a good Syracuse team, but as we said all week, their top-level talent's really good, but they just don't have the depth of Notre Dame. They were coached better than Notre Dame has been this year, but it was about if Notre Dame's defense could play the way we know they're capable of, and if the offense could step up, and look, they left a lot of points on the field.
Yeah, no doubt.
And still won 41-24 over the number 16 team in the country, who led Clemson most of last week's game. So, there'll definitely be some things we'll talk about today that, hey, this has got to get better and that's got to improve. But man, Vince, this was the kind of win. The thing for me, and there's one thing I want to discuss, but I'm gonna hopefully Sean Davis joins the show here in a little bit, because if he does, I want him to discuss it. Because it was a comment that he had made after the show. But this is a game where Notre Dame came out and said, we're better than you. We know it, and we're going to show you. Now, was it clean? Was it a clean game for 60 minutes? No. What did they make a lot of mistakes and miss a lot of opportunities? Yes. But they did all that and still dominated the number 16 team in the country.
Absolutely.
So big win for Notre Dame. And as I joked I think the only tweet I made during the game, Harry Heastan and Brian Mason deserve huge pay raises for the job they've done all season, really, but especially today. This was an entertaining performance, Vince, and every single phase of the game played a role. Like, defense steps up early with a pick six, and then the defense, gives up a touchdown going back. The offense kind of sputters for a while, but the defense makes some plays to kind of keep things down. Then the offense finally gets a chance late to, get up to put it away. Can't do it. Defense makes a turnover or makes a stop on fourth down. Notre Dame goes down and scores. You come out, you're kind of sputtering in the second half, and then you let Syracuse get back in the game. It's 24-17. Defense gives up a score, and the Notre Dame offense goes right down the field and punches it in the end zone and threw once. And it was just like, okay, all right, this is a grown man game today. This was a grown man game. And it was a game where this is who we thought Notre Dame was going to be in several ways. And mainly, they dominated into the trenches on both sides of the ball.
They did.
Flat out dominate on the trenches on both sides of the ball. So, Vince, I got to say, man, I just overall, there's going to be things we're going to critique and criticize and all that. But, man, I was very pleased with just the much of the game and the overall just dominating nature of it physically. I mean, this was a physical game, and we'll get into each kind of part of the game and who played well and all those type of things. But, Vince, you come away from this game saying they went on the road and they showed for 60 minutes that we are better than you. We know we're better than you, and we're going to play like we're better than you. Certainly a much needed sort of confidence boost game heading into next week when Clemson comes to town. There's no doubt about it.
Well, and you talk about we're better than you, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, it was tone setting right off the bat, obviously, with the Joseph interception for a touchdown. I mean, that's how you start a game. That's how you get your team, fired up. You get them into a good place. You're 7-0, and the offense hasn't even stepped foot on the field. I mean, that was awesome. I mean, I was fired up after that, because look, with this team, you don't know who you're going to get from game to game to game, even though, my prediction for this game was a dominant Notre Dame win. And the first sentence in my explanation was, it's a away game. Like, it's on the road. I think Notre Dame's going to win big. And they did. But the defense played really, really well. They got the turnovers when they needed them.
Yeah, they had like 7 or 8 bad plays, Vince. That's it.
Right.
And
they weren't perfect by any stretch
Right.
of the imagination. And I thought they went soft a little bit too early in the game, that kind of stuff. And we can talk about that. I'm sure we will. But I mean, I loved the game plan defensively in the first half. I mean, just
Vince, there's stuff to nitpick against, right? There's stuff to nitpick against.
Of course.
Right.
But I love that. I love that because they turned their Syracuse's starting quarterback into a non-factor. I mean, he was a non-factor in that game.
Yeah.
I think he had 35 passing yards in the first quarter. You know what I mean? I mean, he was an absolute non-factor.
Yeah.
And yes, did they struggle once the backup came in? Sure, but they didn't game plan for that guy.
Right.
You know,
they changed their game plan a little bit.
Right.
They went away from what was working early.
Right.
They were trying to play kind of off. I mean, and that's a 4-star kid that was originally signed with Florida, right? I mean, it's a kid that has some ability. They took.
Good point.
Here's the big thing, though, Vince, for me, and we'll get to the specifics of the defenses. I thought they took away all the things that make Syracuse good. Right? Like they neutralized all the things on both sides of the field that made it good. But Sean, I was holding off on the topic of conversation I wanted to talk about. So, the things that we had discussed was, obviously the offensive line and defensive line and special teams came to play. That's a big takeaway from the game. But there's one other takeaway from this game that I felt that I saw that I thought you perfectly stated in a tweet right after the game.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was late in the game. I felt like, this is a game, Sean. Say what you tweeted and then kind of what you saw.
This is the game, Irish fans, that you saw your head coach take more control of his program.
Absolutely.
You saw it evident today on the field. During our conversations during the week, we kind of got a hint behind the scenes that it was taking place, but we saw the evidence on the field today. And I saw 3 separate occasions. You guys, Ryan, you were there, so you might have saw some other stuff. I saw 3 separate occasions on TV where I said that he's taking accountability.
Yeah.
Like, this is on me. You love to see that. Love to see it.
Sean, can you say what those 3 were? Because I'm curious what you saw on TV is what so I don't want to double up something you saw.
I forget which drive it was in the first half. They got down in the red zone. They went inside the 5, and a play call comes in. They're about to send in different personnel. And you see they were in up tempo, and you see Marcus wave the personnel back, and he says, "No, keep it going, keep it going." It's like, no, I don't know. We're not changing. Keep it going. That was the first time. The second time for me was the way he reacted to the refs giving Syracuse an opportunity to match up when Notre Dame didn't switch personnel.
Right.
And he's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
We didn't switch. Like, no, why are you giving them an opportunity to get off the field? I thought he was seizing control in that moment. And then the last moment was in the fourth quarter. Well, I didn't know Tommy had come down to the field, but Tommy had come down out of the booth, and you could see Marcus looking down and yelling something. And as soon as he gets through yelling, Angeli comes in the game, and here comes Drew Pine off the field. And I'm thinking, like, he's probably like, dude, get him out of the game. He's probably banged up from that sack he took.
Right.
Like, get him out of the game.
And you need Steve Angeli to get some work.
Absolutely.
I mean, just even if it's a handoff, he needs to hear the crowd and do all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and Sean, I mean, there's this notion that goes around like, Coach Freeman's not emotional enough during games because NBC only shows him in like stoic phase, right? I've been at every game except the Las Vegas game, Vince. You've been at every home game. Trust me, Marcus Freeman is not stoic on the sidelines.
No, not at all.
However, this was his most engaged game, Sean. He was constantly getting on the refs, which is something as a coordinator, because you got to understand as a coordinator, you're constantly told by your head coach, don't talk to the refs. Right? Don't talk. That's my job as a head coach. And it can take a while to kind of deprogram, and he's done it a little bit more lately, but we saw that again today. I thought he talked them into finally calling a holding on that late drive by Syracuse. I thought he kind of finally talked them into a holding because they were getting held all game long, which is impressive when you consider how dominant they were, that they were getting held nonstop. I mean, they could have called 4 holds against Riley Mills in this game.
Easily.
So you just saw you saw this team take a little bit of the personality that he's been saying they wanted to be. And that's the thing for me, guys, is because from start, they weren't like emotional pregame, But unlike last week, Vince, and well, you weren't at last week's game, but Sean and the
Sure.
Stars and I talked about this at last week's game. There just was like no energy, no nothing. And before this game, you could just see them kind of like, I mean, you could just see they were walking around like they had a little chip on your shoulder. You know what I mean? Like they weren't like rah and dancing around, but you could just see as they were going through drills that like there was something there. And then they came out from jump and just physically beat Syracuse up. And I mean, guys, the second half of the game, Syracuse knew what was coming every single play.
And didn't matter.
I mean,
it didn't matter.
It really didn't. I mean, if it wasn't for just missed opportunities in the throwing game, it didn't matter. And you know, again, there's stuff that we'll critique when we do the upon further review, either tomorrow night or Monday. We'll kind of see how it goes. Just depends on who's going to do the show. There's going to be stuff we're going to critique and pick apart, and there's stuff we're going to talk about today. But this was the first glimpse we've seen of this team being who we thought they could be.
Yes.
Really in all phases, you know, because even like this in the North Carolina game are close. Like this is who we expected Notre Dame to be. Yeah. And honestly, guys, they should have scored 60 in this game. I mean, there's still a lot to improve on. They left a lot of points on the board, man. A lot of points on the board. Sure. And, you know, I was kind of joking with somebody. Is like, you know, you've got, I mean, O-line dominated. Running backs were brilliant. Defense had great, except for 5 or 6 plays. Special teams continues to be amazing. You know they're going to try to block the punt, and they still can't stop it. You know, I thought, well, let's get into it, fellas. Let's talk offense. I think it's where I want to start.
Well, can I make a point about Marcus Freeman before we move on to offense? Buddy. Yeah, so there was a period in the game, and again, we're watching in the TV copy, obviously. There was a period in the game for a kind of an extended period. He took his headset off. He wasn't talking to the coaches. Like his game plan at that point was to get in the ref's ear, coach the guys up verbally. He didn't have his headset on for a good amount of time. And you talk about kind of taking that next step. You don't really do that as a coordinator. You do that as a head coach. And I think it's just another step in the maturation process of Marcus Freeman as a head coach.
And it's what Sean was referring to. There's some things that he and I have talked about this week that I've heard, some things that he's heard from our different sources that, you know, the Coach Freeman is very aware of the issues on this team and is starting to, with what he can do in season, is starting to address it. Right. And I think you saw that today. This was like they outplayed North Carolina, but the reason I think this game is different because against North Carolina, they just had better players. Against this game, they had better players. This game was honestly, fellas, was a game where Notre Dame's dudes are just way better than Syracuse's dudes in a lot of ways. But the difference was this team played with even more attitude than the last one. Yeah. Like I actually think the North Carolina game plan on offense was way better than this one. Way better. And we'll get in. There's some things I liked about the game plan, but the North Carolina game plan was better. But this game was you had Tobias Merriweather playing, you had Deion Colsey playing, they were playing together. Your running backs are healthy, your tight ends are, you know, getting back to being healthy. You know, your offensive line is just, I mean, it's just, dude, we're way better than you. And there's nothing you can do about it. And the mentality that Coach Freeman has talked about wanting to be a team that plays with a chip on an edge, a confidence of we know who we are, and you're about to feel that. And so we saw that today. And so all the game plan stuff we'll get into that of right course. There, fellas. Vince, to your point, what Sean is saying, that right there is why this game was a resounding 41-24 win, even though there's a lot of the sloppiness we've seen from past games was still there.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, offensive missed opportunities, you know, not turning the ball over on a couple times you had chances, you know, giving up dumb plays on defense. And, you know, a lot of that stuff was still there, fellas. I mean, the passing game today was brutal, right? It wasn't any better than it was worse than it was against Stanford.
Yeah.
The defensive game plan was good. We'll talk about it, but like there were still miscues. But the reason this was a dominant win is because this team played with a confidence, a fire, a physicality that we really haven't seen all year against a team. And here's what I love. This is kind of what we thought Notre Dame should be. And we're finally seeing it. And Sean, this is what you and I did a show during the UNLV week. where we said, this is an opportunity, Marcus Freeman, to finally put his stamp on his program.
Yes.
Right? You let your coaches coach. You did all this
sure.
kind of stuff. You tried to be the coach's coach, right? People say he's a player's coach. No. He's a coach's coach, right? But this is your butt on the line. This team has played differently. A little bit last week. Last week was more about just your dudes are better than their dudes. But this week, we saw it. We saw it. And it didn't matter. Bad officiating. They gave them a touchdown. There shouldn't have been a touchdown. The face mask. There wasn't a face mask. The not calling. None of that mattered. None of that mattered. No excuses.
But yeah.
Don't keep this game close enough where that can matter like it did against
Stanford.
And that's what we saw. It was impressive. Yeah. It was impressive.
Yeah, like you said, offensively, there are some things that we could sit and say, look, it is.
And we will.
I think as a fan base, this we now know who Notre Dame is.
Yeah.
I feel like, is this Notre Dame team good enough to beat Clemson? We'll see. But we know who they are. They're tough. They want to compete and win the trenches, run the ball, and try to take advantage of certain things in the passing game. Like if we're sitting here waiting for the
stuff
pass,
there. It's there.
Oh, dude, Vince.
It's there.
Vince, look, I'll say this. I understand now because I've been critical. You guys have been critical of the wide receivers. I put myself or attempt to put myself in their shoes. I would be frustrated.
Absolutely.
If I was a Notre Dame wide receiver. I'm just going to be honest. I would be frustrated for multiple reasons. Yeah. They had 62 yards today.
Right.
And shout out, man, it was good to see Deion Colsey get in 3 for 44. Had a big catch on the third down in the second half. It's good to see him getting some tick. But let me tell you something, man. Tommy was so mad because we can talk about play calling. The screen to Lorenzo was perfect.
It's a great call.
Great call.
Great call in that moment.
It was a touchdown.
A great call.
You have to make that throw. You have to make that throw. And that's why they showed Tommy once again on the phone. And they should stop doing that. Stop showing Tommy talking to him.
Right.
Hey, stop doing that.
I agree with that completely.
You did it the first time, fine. Let's get over it. Like he's getting coached up. Every quarterback gets coached up during a game.
Right.
But yeah, you know, there are plays that are going to be left on the field because the position is not as consistent as you would want it to be. And that's just we're going to leave points on the field.
Let's talk about the offense overall. I want to talk about some of the good things I like today, fellas.
Yeah.
I thought early on, I liked the game plan for the most part. I did. I thought they did a great job of mixing up personnel. We saw 11 personnel. We saw 12 personnel, 13 personnel, 22. They started the game 22 personnel with Audric Estime at fullback.
Well,
and the game ball twice.
If you watch the game broadcast, they were in 14 personnel with Jaden Thomas, which
Don't even get me started on Greg McElroy.
He said the words.
Did you know that?
Yeah, he said the words. They're in 14 personnel. And I'm like, dude, do some research.
It's Greg McElroy. He went to Alabama. What do you expect? Okay. But they started off in 13 personnel and 22 personnel, gave the ball to Audric Estime. Great run. So is Audric Estime also a tight end? Because that's the only other way. I'm just thinking about that. That's the only way it could be 14 personnel is if you count Audric Estime as a tight end.
Right.
Otherwise, it's 23 personnel. Like he's not even right. If Jaden Thomas was a tight end, he's still not right,
dude.
Anyway, but you start off, and I thought that to me was symbolic of what was about to happen because you got a kid that got benched a week ago because he fumbled for the second straight game, and your game plan was to come out and give him the ball the first 2 plays of the game. I thought that was smart. I thought it gave Syracuse a little something to think about. It was a couple quick hitters, and it set a tone. We are going to run the ball down your throat all game.
Yeah.
And, of course, obviously the drive doesn't go how it should have gone. It doesn't finish the way it should have finished, but it set a tone. And I think that's the thing for me, fellas, that I liked. We saw them mixing up personnel. We saw Deion and Tobias on the field together. We saw them mixing up the backs a little bit. There's still things that bothered me, like why is Matt Salerno your all-time third down guy? Like why is he one of your third down weapons constantly? Why is Chris Tyree still your A-back power runner? You know what I mean? But, I thought they used Logan Diggs on more zones in the first half, and I thought that helped him. I mean, the run he had, that 16-yard run, was an inside zone play, and the defensive end crosses Joe Alt's face, so Joe seals him inside. And because you don't bounce inside zone very often. It's a vertical cutback play. Well, he bounced it. He starts going outside the line. He sees the linebacker kind of going over top, and he plants and cuts it sharp vertically, and gets upfield. Guys, there were so many times the box was out. They were still outnumbered in the box. But what this game is like, you can talk about game plan and play calling, and it was a good game plan. It was just, I think we're kind of excited about it because it was so much better than the mess we've seen in recent games. But it was good play calling. I like the versatility of the personnel. That was all good. But this game really, fellas, I mean, we can't talk about a lot else other than we said before the year, we didn't know when it was going to happen, but we felt that at some point in time this year, this offensive line would be one of the nation's best. And they've been slowly working to that point. And today they showed like, and we also said before the season that if the running backs stay healthy, this will be one of the 5 best backfields in college football. And both of those units today flat out look like it. I mean, the offensive line, they were bullying. There was one play where Zeke Correll got beat off the ball by that nose guard, and he kind of knocked him back. Yeah. And
Zeke, like talking about
Zeke anchored and then drove him back. I don't know if you guys could see it from the TV, but we had a great, and we're really low. Yeah. And you could see like he gets rocked back, and I'm thinking, oh, he's about to get blown up, run into the ball. And Zeke anchors and stops the movement immediately, and then starts getting a push. Do you know how hard, Sean? You played line in high school, right? Do you know how hard it is to get knocked back as a lineman and then push forward that quickly? I thought Josh Lugg had
anchor.
Yes,
anchor and recover.
And then push.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Very impressive. I thought Josh Lugg had the best game of his career, and the tackles played well. But just as a unit, fellas, this was as good of a performance you're going to see. And I just was kind of like the petty side of me wants to be like, raise your hand if you were one of those people at the beginning of the year after 2 games was like, Harry Heastand's done, and he's overrated. If you were one of those people, raise your hand because you need to own that. Right. And but the job they're doing right now, because guys, the thing is, you see it. Syracuse knew what was coming.
Yeah.
They knew what was coming. They had numbers the whole game, and there was nothing they could do about it. And we don't see a lot of the big runs because again, you're outnumbered constantly, but they just I mean, there was 3 runs where he got hit, him or Estimate or Diggs got hit at like 3 yards, and they just moved for not like move forward 3-4 more yards, move forward like 10 yards.
Yeah.
It was like, you gotta be kidding me.
Look,
so man, the back line. You got to put them together, right, Sean? You got to put those 2 units together because they played great together today.
Yo, it had to be beautiful to watch live, though.
Oh man, because can I say something to you, Sean? Yeah. So Syracuse it's a basketball dome. It's really low, so we're like right behind the first row, like the first lower deck of seats.
Yeah,
and it's a basketball arena, so it's not. I mean, so we're like right there. Like I can hear the quarterback talking. We're like really close. So to your point, this was the perfect place to watch this kind of game for Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me explain that because you are absolutely right. It's an open press box.
Oh, interesting. Well, of course, because it's indoors. It makes
sense.
Sense.
Indoors and basketball, it makes sense. That makes sense.
Yep, absolutely. The whole offensive game plan starts with the front and the backs.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. And to Sean's point earlier about the wide receivers being frustrated, I get it, man. Like I thought the wide receivers, when they had opportunities, they made plays. I was happy with the way the wide receivers played. I'm a little surprised Braden Lindsey didn't play very much. I don't know if there's something behind that, but
there has to be.
There has to be, right? I mean, he was playing special teams.
Or you should be fired for having Matt Salerno on the field on 3rd down instead of Braden Lindsey.
Right. Braden Lindsey was playing special teams, but he wasn't playing offense, which was
he wasn't hurt
to me.
He wasn't hurt.
Yeah, very strange to me.
Yeah.
But I thought outside of Matt Salerno, and I will also say this, the throw that went to Matt Salerno over the middle, I believe he was open and the throw was late. No, he was not? Okay. So you were there in person. So somebody on the board said that he was open, blah, blah, blah. So, okay.
No, he wasn't open.
He doesn't need to be in there at that point. I don't care if you play Matt Salerno, but he does not need to be in there on 3rd down. There are places to put him in. You know what I mean?
Freeman said after the game he was sick. He didn't look sick to me running down on punt team. Yeah. Did you see the stop, the tackle he made on that one punt return?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So he could do that. He could do that, but he can't run on third. He can't run third down crossing route or seam route. Tobias was open on the post route for a touchdown.
So
he just threw it late.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
When they showed the replay of just Tobias on the screen, and there wasn't an orange shirt in the neighborhood for quite some time. If he throws that when he's stemming, it's a touchdown.
And that's kind of one of my frustrations is, look, they know what's coming. They were daring you to throw it deep.
Yes.
And there was another play, and this is where you kind of the criticisms, right? The criticism of the game is the sloppiness, right? You get back-to-back false starts. You can't have stuff like that. You get a big pick and you're offsides. You can't have stuff like that. But like on the false start by Joe Alt, they had Tobias in at the number 2. They were in a 3-by-1 with a tight end attached and a 3 over the top, and had Tobias as the number 2. And he ran just like a little kind of a skinny post, and he was smoked. He was about to smoke that dude. Like you saw him beat the guy out of the break.
And that's where Drew wanted to go.
The guy didn't hear the whistle. The kid was playing. Yeah. I mean, he smoked him, and like you said, that's where Drew was looking, and then they blew the whistle dead. It was
because Pine was climbing the pocket to make that.
Oh, he was staring down Tobias on that.
Oh
play.
Yeah,
he was
no
staring
doubt
down.
about that.
I mean, and he should have, because it was cover 0. I mean, that's one of those ones where cover 0. I don't need you to get tricky. I need you to lock on who you're going to get the ball to, and when he gets out of his break, you let her rip,
because you don't need to move anybody, right?
No,
I mean, that's the point. You don't need to move anybody with your eyes. If it's cover 0 and there's no safety, dude, I don't care. Throw it to him.
Yeah. Now he did make one great throw in this game. That late half throw to Michael Mayer, because they were getting ready to go into halftime up
the 37-yarder,
and Syracuse made that. If I got to grab my notes. I think Syracuse decided
to the left a little bit. Stepped up. Yeah.
What I didn't understand is why didn't Syracuse go for it on 4th down there?
Yes, to give the ball.
And there was still like a minute something left, and you're near midfield. I was like, I don't know if that's like, because here's the thing. Here's why that was a bad call by Coach Babers. You were lucky to only be down 14-7 at that point in time, because Notre Dame was out. No, it should have been. I actually, because I had a story written, and at the bottom of my first half analysis, I said, Notre Dame's only up 14-7 because there was like a minute some left, and I thought they were going to punt, and I had no confidence the offense was going to go 90 yards down the field and score. And you always change it as it goes. I said this game should be 24-7 right now, but it's only 14-7. And then Coach Babers goes for on 4th down. They don't get it, and I'm like, this is Notre Dame's chance. And then Drew, I mean, as bad as he was, they needed that drive. They needed that drive big time, because it's 14-7 is a whole lot different than 21-7, right? And that throw to Mayer, I mean, I still don't understand why you're single covering him ever. Ever. There should never be a situation where you single cover him. Like, just, if you're going to get beat by somebody else, then get beat by somebody else. It made no sense. But that was a great ball. Great ball. If he underthrows him just a skosh, that ball gets broken up. It's a great ball.
That was his best
struggled
ball of the day.
By far. He struggled, but that was a big throw that you can't take away. I mean, you can't take that away. But I thought the receivers were getting open, Sean. I mean, you didn't see it a lot. I mean, they could have taken comebacks all day. And they did it early to Dion. They did it late to Dion. It was there all day, And then you could have done hit one more and then pump and go. It was there. But it was interesting when you finally kind of get some of your best players into the game. All of a sudden, you're like, wow, Notre Dame does have some players. So
you think?
Yeah.
I thought overall, Vince, you talked about this when we were in a text thread during the game. I was pleased with the game plan, right? Because this was a game plan, and I know some fans were on Twitter, kind of upset about a couple of things. Look, this is a game, and I think McElroy pointed this out, Vince. You know how tough it is, dude. That Clemson Notre Dame back-to-back weeks. That's some physical football, yo. You talk about a team being worn out. They better get ready for next week as well, because they have physically been drained for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And to emotionally get back up to take on that type of physical team in front of you, that's tough. That was tough to ask. That's why I was totally happy with the game plan that Tommy had. Like, just pound these dudes.
Yeah.
Tommy tried. I said during the week that the biggest thing for me would be, would Tommy resist the urge to get tricky?
Yeah.
And a couple of times in the third quarter, he almost got away from it a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
But for the most part, the game plan was perfect. Like, look, They had a physical game last week. Just pound them. Keep
Mhm.
pounding them. Zone, some gaps. But I love the way I talked about this, and Vince, we talked about it, how impressed we were with the feet of Aldrich Estime.
Yes. No
He
doubt.
was running with such better balance today. He wasn't getting ahead of himself. Because like, here's the thing, that long run he had at the end of the game to put it away, like really put it away.
Yeah.
That run 2 weeks ago, he bounces and falls down.
Yeah.
Because he got so far ahead of his pads, right? That he could. I keep hitting this chair with my feet. It keeps putting me down. Sorry.
He said, boop, boop, boop. Brian is literally getting shorter as the show
I know,
goes
right?
on.
But Logan Diggs was tell you what, the backs guys, the combination of patience and decisiveness was really brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
And they all ran with great balance. I mean, Diggs and Estime especially ran with great balance. And again, into loaded boxes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it just was like they knew it was coming and there's nothing they could do about it. You're like, that's a Harry Heaston. And this is what I'm saying about that's why you hired Harry Heaston. That right there. That's why you hire Harry Heaston, because that's what you hire him to do, because you know you're going to get into games like this where it's just like, we're just going to, a lot of stuff isn't going well. Drew's having a rough game. He's not able to hit certain throws, all these other type of things. But at the end of the day, just run behind them big boys, man. Just get behind them big boys and let them go.
Let them eat. Let them eat.
Well, and the other thing I will say, and look, we're not going to argue the fact that Drew Pine struggled. I mean, I'm not going to argue that fact. They only turned the ball over, one time offensively?
Well, yeah, they were lucky to only do it one time. If that on that sack, if that guy doesn't pin the ball into Drew's chest, he fumbles that ball.
I get that, but they only turned the ball over one time at the end of the day. Right. And this was a team that has a ton of forced turnovers.
Yeah.
And so that's a plus coming out of this game, in my opinion.
There's a couple missed turnover opportunities by Syracuse, if I'm going to be honest, but they didn't get them, right?
That's fine. And Notre Dame turned them over, which they haven't done all year.
See, they were ripping at Aldrich early. They saw the film, and he was like, nope.
Yeah. He was two hands on the ball most of the time.
Dude, I'm not fumbling the ball today, baby.
No. So, those were two bonuses for me, for sure.
Just a quick note. For all the people that tried to say that this wasn't going to be an upgrade on the offensive line coach. Last year in 13 games, Notre Dame rushed for over 200 yards 3 times. 3 times last year. An entire season did they rush for over 200 yards against North Carolina, Virginia, and Georgia Tech. They have run for over 200 yards, and actually they've run for over 220 yards in 4 of the last 5 games. So against teams that know they're going to run the football, right? Isn't that what we always say? Like, you know you're bad when you can line up and say, everybody knows what's happening right now, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Everybody in the stadium knew that Notre Dame was going to run the ball.
Yeah.
Everybody. And they should have. And they did. And they were successful at it.
They couldn't stop it.
I mean,
and they really couldn't stop it.
I'll say this. With everything that offensive line threw at Syracuse, that Darden kid is a tough son of a gun.
Yeah.
Boy.
He got work today.
He got work, but he battled. He was competing. He was getting his butt kicked.
Yeah.
For the game. And did you see at the end of the game, they got down to the 2-yard line in the victory formation, and they take the knee, and he's just running his mouth.
He's just chirping, man.
And Aldrich looks at him and says, "You're too small, dude."
Did he really? Did he do that?
Go back and look at it. Aldrich turns to him like, "You're too small, dude. You're too small." I just started laughing. I was like, "That's the best. That's the
I love
best.
it.
That was awesome.
I love it.
Hey, when you're that size and you can still make plays, dude, talk all you want, man, because you're backing it up. I
don't think he did back it up today. I thought they worked him all game long. He battled.
He's backed it up in his career, is what I'm saying. Because
he didn't back it up today. He should have kept that trap. He should have kept that trap shut today, though. He should have kept that trap shut today, especially in the fourth quarter.
Hey
man,
I like it.
See that 4 and that 1? That's on our side.
Right.
You see that 2 and that 4? That's on your side. You knew what was coming, and you still couldn't beat us. But
that's not his fault.
Huh? Yeah, it was. They ran right at him. Vince, they ran A-gap runs the entire game. What was he defending?
There's 10 other guys that need to try to tackle Estime too, not just him.
I'm saying.
He made a couple plays.
I get like the walk-on love you got,
he
like
made a couple
the undersized
plays.
guy and all that you're feeling right now, but that dude got worked. Okay, that dude got worked. But it was offensively, Sean, I think the game plan was good from the standpoint of you almost kind of took a do no harm approach, which is still disappointing. It shouldn't be that way, but this is kind of what it is because you didn't recruit or develop your quarterbacks well enough to be better. And I don't like, where'd the kid go that was against BYU in North Carolina? Where'd that kid go? Like his confidence is just shot. Like there were so many open opportunities there today, guys. And he just like the interception. Yeah. I mean, they had 2 screen calls today that would have gone if he just doesn't throw them at their feet and just stuff like that. And it's just like, I don't know what's going on, but it's like, it's just kind of in your head. And Ryan Roberts just texted me, said the nose guard is Vince's spirit animal. So yes, very, very true. Very true. But like the interception was like, he just locked in on Michael Mayer again. Right. And was just like, this is where I'm going with the ball. And
well, if it's a good throw, it's a completion. Maybe,
but the safety was closed. The only way he could have got that there, Vince, is to get it over enough. The safety that was bracketing deep would have probably had time to close on it. Right. So from where I was sitting, I don't think there would have been a way to fit that in there. But the point is when you stare at it, though, you give that defense a chance to make a play on it. But I thought they did what they needed to do. And Tommy was just like, look, we got these big boys up front and we got this tight end and we got these backs and we're just gonna run it down your throat. Yes, for next week, they're gonna have to get better throwing the football. I don't think they could beat Clemson not throwing the football. But for today, for today,
I was yelling at the TV to run the football.
Right.
That is the first time that I've done that.
Like, there were times when you're like, okay, why are you throwing there? Like you need to throw it, but why are you throwing there? And like what was the second half? They came out and it was the first drive of the second half. Notre Dame offense kind of goes down and you get to 2nd 8 and you call the post route to Tobias. I had no problem with that. I mean, you're going for 6 there. I didn't have a problem with that. But then there's other times where it's like you come out and you're like, wait a minute, why? What was the first half? There was one where like they tried to throw it to Styles early and you're like, why are you calling that play? I thought it might have been an RPO, but it wasn't. It just was like kind of a, just a bad call. But they're just, it was the 4 series. They come out and they just ran they go 13 personnel and tried to run a play action quick throw out to Styles or Jaden Thomas maybe, I forget who it was. And you're just like, why are you doing that? And then you go to third, you get to 2nd and 10. So then you run for a counter play for 5 yards to estimate. And then you get to 3rd and 5 and you try to throw a seam route to Matt Salerno. And you're just like, what are you doing here, man? Like, it's like, that was a weird series, but other than that, it was just, man, now like duo, inside zone, duo, quick pass to Mayer. That catch he made on 3rd and 6, how'd that look on TV? He was literally on his knees when he caught the ball.
Yes, he fell down.
He tripped.
And he still caught the stinking ball.
Well, and here's the other thing. I don't know that he catches that ball if he doesn't fall over because it was thrown at his shins. And he caught the ball because he was on the ground.
No. That's great anticipation. I knew he was going to fall. And he's like, he's going to slip. His outside foot on the plant got a little out from underneath him. I think he's going to go to his knees. Let me throw the ball. Yes. Duo, wedge, duo, inside zone touchdown.
Look,
they had so many, it just grown. Like this is the first touchdown they had, Vince. Again, now screen, duo, inside zone, duo, quick pass to Mayer, duo. That was the 3rd and 1, wedge to Audric, dive to Audric, a 3-yard run, touchdown. And then, you just knew it was coming. Second half, when they've got to put that game away, this is literally what they ran on that touchdown drive, to put it away. It was the one before it was the one where Estim had the 13-yard touchdown run. It was after they had gone down and the game was like getting a lot closer, and you go inside zone to Tyree, duo to Tyree, 3rd and 1, Tyree goes duo right up their gut for first down, then duo. You ran a comeback to Colsey for then you go pass interference, duo, and it just was like you knew what was coming. Like it just was like bam, 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 and there was nothing they could do about it. And look, it's easy to look good as a play caller when it doesn't matter if the defense knows what you're doing. Your dudes are just going to dominate them. That makes you look a lot better as a play caller. You know what I mean?
This is how big the call sheet should have been. About a 3x5 card with like 10 plays and you go to the first 5 consistently. Those other 5 are just kind of for fun. Like, that's how big the play sheet should have been today. And that's
I get what you're saying.
You know what I mean? I'm
I get what you're saying. I get the point you're making.
Hyperbolic, obviously, but they ran duo a bunch. They ran zone a bunch. That's what they've been doing in the past too. And now they're doing it, and it's working because that is the game plan against Syracuse. And watching them play Clemson last week, that is the game plan. And so going into this, I was like, well, if they keep the same game plan, they're going to be in great shape. And they were. Yeah. And you're right, Sean. There were a couple of times where I was like, oh, he's trying to be too smart. He's trying to get a little bit too cute, throwing it on first down and like some of the things that he was doing. But then at the end of the day, there were throws that were missed too. So it's like, I had no problem with them just running the crap out of the ball today. And it was good because they leaned on the offensive line and the offensive line responded, period. Yeah. And if you have any prayer beating Clemson, the offensive line is going to need to show up again the way they did today. Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah. Now, Drew's going to have to play better, but again, for today, it was impressive. Yes. Let's talk about anything else you guys want to mention about the offense. I mean, it was nice to see the skill out there. I mean, you started to see the big boys out there. And I'm going to tell you something right now, being there, Syracuse, I hope this is something we see more of. Syracuse panicked when they came out that one series, went 21 personnel with Dion, Tobias, Tyree in the game. And Syracuse didn't know what to do. I mean, they panicked because they're like, got these giants outside, and then you know what I mean.
That's a great.
I want to see more of that
move right there. Let me tell you that. I do want to bring up. I saw this comment that was made, and I do want to bring it up just from a offensive game plan situation. Cheyenne Phillips says Josh Lugg tips the snap count with his hand gesture each snap. I picked up on it. I'm sure Cuse did too in the second half. He wasn't tipping the count. He was making the snap count.
Right.
Because I mean, that's how they decided to do it in the dome with all the noise. Right. He was telling the center to snap the ball. That wasn't tipping the snap. He was the snap. So that because he was able to look back and see
that. And apparently Cuse didn't figure it out because they ran for more yards in the second half than they ran in the first half. So clearly they didn't figure it out.
That was how they decided to snap the ball. They weren't doing the clap thing. They weren't doing the leg up thing. They were doing Josh Lugg. This is when we snap the ball. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
I want to say this before. Go ahead, Sean.
Remember last week we talked about, I think you and I just spoke about it on the phone. And I said Notre Dame needs to start developing a healthy disrespect for teams that they know they're better than.
Yes. Sure.
And I think you saw that today. Even though they were the underdog, according to Vegas, I think they knew that Syracuse had no business being on the field with them. And they played like it. They played like it. They played like it in the trenches. They played like it on the outside. They played like it at the skill positions. I think the skill position players felt like, we can make plays on these guys.
Yeah.
And it started from you saw the way he was acting on the sideline, Vince. You saw it permeated.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because Marcus Freeman had a different attitude this week.
Yes.
And I will say, I anticipated that from game one from him.
Yeah.
And we hadn't really gotten it, I think, until today.
Well, Sean, Vince, it's because it's what I said at the beginning. And Vince, Sean, I don't know if you're in the show yet, but I think you were. He was trying to be a coach's coach.
Yeah.
That's what he's trying to do. I'm going to let my guy, because that's what, here's the thing. It's like whether it's parenting or you always say, hey, I'm going to do things I'm going to treat my employees the way I wish people would have treated me when I was an employee. Right. Yeah. Everybody says that, like when I'm the boss,
sure.
I'm going to, and I think he did that. And to a degree, it's like but then sometimes you realize like, okay, this I'm right about, but now I see why the head coach did this way.
Yeah.
Right. Because he's the head coach. I mean, he's got to make, and I think we saw today that Marcus Freeman said, okay, fellas, this is my team. I'm the one that's got to answer for this every Monday and every Saturday after the game. I'm the one who's got to get called into the AD's office if things don't go the way that we want to. I'm the one who's got to answer. I'm the one who's getting articles written about me. And I'm the one who ultimately whose neck is on the line. We're going to play this game the way I want this game to be played.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I think they responded to it. I really do. And I think too I think that's why the special teams have been so good this year, because that's Brian Mason's energy nonstop.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And I think that we see how they've responded, because like even when the offense and defense, you're like, what are they doing? The special teams are always good.
So what you're saying is
Yeah.
what you're saying is Braden Lindsey wanted to play for Brian Mason and not for
Sure.
Tommy Reese today. You just
Wouldn't
said
shock
that.
me.
That's what you
Yeah.
said, right?
Okay. I mean, you said, oh, okay, cool. But there was some thing.
Look, he coaches with fire, man. They
Dude,
showed him like running
but
on the field, screaming and yelling.
They
it was
play
awesome.
to it. The
Yeah,
players
absolutely.
respond to that.
Especially
and I think that's something, and that's Sean, that's something, and it wasn't even Coach Freeman wasn't being like a rah-rah guy. He just had an intensity today. And I don't even like an emotional intensity. I just mean like that one where like, you catch eye contact, you're like, uh-oh. Like, you know what I mean? Like there was a time where like I could see him like looking at the ref as the ref walked over, and I was like, this ref is not looking forward to this conversation he's about to have with Marcus Freeman right now. There just was there was an intensity to him, not a passion, right? You know what I mean? Like you guys know what I'm saying, like an intensity, right? Like there was just man, I am locked in right now.
Yeah.
And his team played that way, right? And that's why, because like what's been frustrating in the past is the same mistakes we saw today have been happening all year. I mean, that's the thing I want to point out. I want people to understand the mistakes on defense, giving up big plays. Like you gave up a 3rd and 8 conversion on a freaking mid zone because you were playing like it was 3rd and 18. Like I still won't understand that. You're turning guys loose over the middle field. I mean, your offside eliminates a pick. Your quarterback's missing guys. You're going false starts in 3rd down when you're driving down the field. You're turning the ball over. The ball's right there, and you're not able to fall on it. Like all the stuff we've been complaining about all year, still there today. But they dominated. Why? Because this team played with that edge, Sean, and that's what I'm talking about. Like they play with that physical, that edge. So that was able, plus the talent was able to kind of outshine some of that stuff. And they still dominated, even though, because like if they would have played this way all year, I mean, they're 6-1 right now.
Easy.
Yeah.
Right?
Easily.
Oh,
like the pass game performance isn't good enough to beat Ohio State. Like this isn't, I mean,
agreed.
Your starting quarterback went 8 of 9 out of the gate for 120 yards against Ohio State, and you still couldn't put them away, right?
Right.
So I mean, but the other games, I mean, you're not only 6-1, fellas, actually be 7-1 now. You haven't played a close game since Ohio State if you play this way.
Yeah.
That's what was so fun today, because again, there was a moment in this game that I thought too that I think is going to be potentially the thing that springs this could potentially spring this team forward. I'm going to try to find it. Syracuse comes down and they score to make it 24-17. Right? Let me pull up the play sheet here real quick.
Syracuse scored.
Syracuse scores to make it 24-17 in the 3rd quarter.
Mm-hmm.
And Notre Dame's defense is scuffling. I think that was the play they gave up the mid zone, 3rd and 8 mid zone, which just I wanted to just scream. And Golden could have heard me too from where I was sitting. I'm like, dude, you know what I mean? Like, how many 3rd and longs are you going to give up this year?
That really popped because Jason Adamiola he gambled.
Yeah.
He did,
but you were also playing off. It just the point is,
man.
It was the same stuff. It's the same stuff we've been seeing all year, right? You had a team on the ropes. It's 21-7. You should have put them away. You have to settle for a field goal. They get a field goal. You do nothing. You go 3 and out. Give them the ball back. Crowd's going crazy. You let them go down, score a touchdown. Late 3rd quarter, 24-17. Syracuse is right back in that game.
Right.
And I think what we saw happen next, because if I'm a defensive player at Notre Dame, I'm frustrated with how this season has gone. Because it's kind of like, we come out here and we're playing our butts off every game, and you guys don't have our back, right? Then the offense kind of comes out and sputters, and they go 3 and out. And I'm thinking, here we go. And then this happened. Howard Cross tips a pass that Maris intercepts. Offense comes right back, and this is what I love about this. It was the run I was talking about. Run. This is what the play sheet says. Rush middle for 4 yards. Rush middle for 5 yards. Rush middle for 4 yards. Rush middle for 2 yards. Rush middle for 2 yards. Then they had to come back to Colsey. You had the pass interference, and then rush middle for 11 yards, touchdown. And then you got the defense kind of comes right back out on that next series and puts them away. Just puts them away. Yeah. And I think that was kind of like when the offense went down and scored. If you guys saw it, because the defense there was like starting to be some like heads looking around, like what's going on. When they got that pick and Maris got that pick and the offense went down and scored, I feel like that defense, when they came back out that next series, that defense had a little something different to them that next series. Because I felt like for the first time all year, the offense picked them up.
Yeah.
And I think that it's almost like that took like a big weight off their shoulders. You know what I mean? And that's when they buried Syracuse. And they just put the game away after that. Yeah, a couple garbage plays here, but they put the game after that. And I wonder if that can be that thing, that moment that we look back on at the end of the year and say, that's the moment that this became a team. Because one side of the ball has been carrying the other all year.
Yeah.
You know, and defense, you can't give up that field goal drive. Like, really? We held Stanford to 16 points. You're going to try to blame us for this? You had 3 possessions after we gave up that field goal, and you're blaming us. But that's what's been going on for the defense.
Yeah.
Right? And you come out today and you're playing great, but then you slip up a little bit. Your offense doing its normal thing of not scoring, not putting the game away. And then they respond with that type of drive. I felt like, okay, all right, guys, this team's got a little bit of something. And then you know what happened on the very next series? Blocked punt.
Yeah.
So it was all 3 phases in 3 consecutive series.
Yeah, right.
All stepped up and did what they're capable of. And next thing you know, it's 38-17. It's ball game.
It's game over.
Right.
It's ball game.
I
said, okay, I wonder if this is the moment that this team becomes what we think they can be. That particular moment where it's not even about out-talenting them anymore. It's like, okay, we can be really good. If I'm Marcus Freeman, I'm showing that sequence of events and saying, this is what we're capable of when we play as a team. You know, and that's what I like to see.
You know what? That's another moment that we can talk about. Vince, did you pick this up on the quick change after the interception?
Mm-hmm. Drew's interception okay.
I think it was after the interception. No. You just went through it. Syracuse cut it to 7. They come back. They get the ball back. And before Notre Dame's defense runs on the field, you see Marcus Freeman walk up into the middle of the defense.
Yep.
And
right in the huddle.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, let's get a stop.
Yeah. He pushed some guys out of the way to get into the huddle. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't care what just happened.
Yep.
Let's get a stop. And like you said, they went out.
And what they do, Sean?
They got to stop.
Howard Cross gets his hands up, tips a ball. Something we said, we were talking this week, like, or was it last week? When are they going to bat and pass down? Like, get your hands up. They come out this game. Howard gets his hands up and tips it and intercepts it. I think that's a good time to transition to the defense too, fellas, because we've been talking a lot about the offense. You know, Vince, you had said earlier that you really like the defensive game plan. I'd like for you to expand on that because I did as well. There was a couple things I didn't like. I thought first half, because it wasn't a game plan in the second half. It was,
it was
this whole, exactly.
That's a whole other conversation.
I didn't like, they were in man and they went in motion on 3rd down and they let that guy kind of out leverage Ramon. They got kind of caught. There's miscommunication there. I didn't like that. I don't like that kind of check. But other than that, I mean, first half defense was lights out. I mean, they held Syracuse to under 100 yards in the first half, fellas.
And I think, what I liked about it is they took the game to Syracuse. They didn't allow Syracuse to settle into this game and try to pick apart the defense or, whatever. And then the defense is adjusting to what Syracuse is doing. Al Golden took the game to the Syracuse offense, which is what I really liked because everybody was talking about, the Syracuse quarterback and how Schrader was going to be able to run and throw and do all of these things against Notre Dame. He had 35 yards in the first half. 35. He's 5 of 14 because Notre Dame just brought it into his kitchen. And I loved every second of it. And what you don't see on the TV copy, and I'm going to assume that this is accurate because I wasn't there, so I'll get Brian's take on this when he wants to. But yes, Notre Dame was bringing pressure. They were making Schrader make decisions that he didn't want to make, but there was nowhere for him to put the ball either. So the secondary had to have been covering guys down the field during
except for that
first
series. That first series they had
Fair
a couple
enough.
mistakes, but yes, Vince, there was, and even some of the balls they completed were like, that was just a great ball. I mean, like there was a pass they completed. Tariq Bracy blew a coverage that allowed Gadsden early in the third quarter to rip off a big play.
Sure.
But the other time he completed a pass on him, it was like Tariq was in great position, and he had a 6'5" guy on him, and the Del Rio kid just put it at about 9 feet and let Gadsden go get it. I mean, there was just nothing you could do about it. Well, they tried to go back to that route later with this time it was Benjamin Morrison on that kid, and Benjamin is longer than Tariq, and then Brandon Joseph closed on the quicker, and there just was nowhere to go with football.
Right.
Yeah, like they went after Benjamin Morrison early. You know, he gave up that post for a touchdown, and then
I didn't like the way he was giving up inside leverage. And
right.
All.
I don't. They do that all the time. I don't understand it. You're playing cover zero. I don't get that. But you could tell that's what he was doing. You know, especially against a 6'5" guy. I'm not giving that. They went back in again. You had the defensive holding, and then after that, they kept going at him, and it was like, you all might want to stop doing this. Like the interception, they got called back the offsides. I mean, that was textbook high-low coverage.
Yes, it was.
I mean, because the guy couldn't go up for the ball because Benjamin was so in his ribs that when he went up, Benjamin just rode him.
Right.
So he couldn't stop and go for the ball. And Brandon this was by far Brandon Joseph's best football game.
Yes.
Oh, by far. I mean, he set every the tone.
Aspect.
He set the tone. They baited Garrett Schrader into that pick early.
Yep.
So I don't know if you guys saw that. So they started off. It looked like too high, but I knew it wasn't going to be too high. I've seen Notre Dame play, and I was also behind. You know, it's a little different when the quarterback view is different. I was behind it. You know, they were in front of me, and so you could see the backside safety starting to roll. They had the nickel over top of number 2 against a 3-by-1. And at the snap of the ball, Brandon just flies down, and he read that quarterback. I mean, just and the guy just locked in on because he saw number 3 being uncovered, and he saw J.D. Bertrand tucked way inside. He's thinking this slant's going to be open. Well, what's been giving Notre Dame a lot of problems? Slants. And Notre Dame played that perfect. They had Brandon come from inside to that route.
Yes.
And he jumped it perfectly. So it was a great call, Vince, to your point. They baited Syracuse into that. They weren't going to give up the perimeter quick throw. They were trying to force the ball back inside, and they had Brandon coming from inside out in that throw. Great call.
And read it perfectly.
The pressures that they brought were like 4- and 5-man pressures. And there was 2 plays in the second half where Notre Dame brought a linebacker fire, and they had Isaiah Foskey running hip to hip with Sean Tucker up the sideline on wheel routes twice in a row. They were looking to Sean Tucker. They tried to go to a wheel route, and I can't remember what happened, but Notre Dame did something to like blow the play up. And so Syracuse is like, dude, they put Isaiah Foskey on Sean Tucker. We're calling that again. They went right back to it the next play, and Foskey just ran with them the whole time. How are you a team? How are you going to beat a team when their 6'5", 265-pound tight end can run with your stud running back on a wheel route? You can't win that game.
No.
You can't win that game.
No.
And, you know, it was just stuff like that, Vince. But overall, the coverage was really good. They had some – when they went away from the game plan, to your point, is when they gave up stuff late.
Correct.
When they went away from that aggressiveness, they weren't bringing the 5th linebacker fire. And then when Syracuse got back in the game, they went back to their game plan and they shut them down.
Right.
You know, so
especially when there's a backup quarterback in the game, man, just go get that kid. You know, and I realize he comes from pedigree and he's a transfer from Florida and all, but he's a backup for a reason, right?
Well,
go get him. Go get him.
I'm gonna disagree with you on that. I mean, he's a 4-star top 200 kid who's backing up another 4-star top 200 kid who's 3 years older, right? I mean, I get what you're saying. He's not the star. But
what I'm saying is
that's a talented kid, but he's still the backup, and they should have attacked him. I just don't want it to seem like he's the backup.
The starter. They own the starter.
Yes.
Own the
you
backup.
let that other kid get comfortable.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
So yes, agree with you that complete. That I agree with. I just didn't like the, this kid's put it like this. You put that kid on Notre Dame's offense.
And I get that completely. What I'm saying is you owned the starter. Go own the backup. That's what I'm getting 100%. At. Yeah.
Especially because he doesn't have the experience that Garrett Schrader has.
Right. Exactly.
You know, you should have been more aggressive. And that's that killer instinct that this team still doesn't quite have. But that sequence of events, that's what I'm hoping becomes that moment for them.
Yeah.
Of that put away moment. But put away moments got to come from coaching. You got conservative on offense in the second half. You got conservative on defense in the second half, and you're only up 24-7. That's way too early to have that, you know, because we've said Syracuse is not a good comeback team. And you let them come back because you went away from the stuff that was shut them down. They did a great – Sean, we talked about how they went away from outside zone with Sean Tucker. They went back to that today. And the defensive ends just shut it down. Riley Mills was dominant setting the edge. Nana was really good setting the edge.
Yeah, he was.
Justin Adamiola was a little inconsistent. Gabriel Rubio was a monster today. This was as good as he's played. And Chris Smith just flat whooped. Here's the thing that got me, fellas. They used their athleticism to handle Syracuse, But there was also snaps where Notre Dame's undersized D lineman just came off the line and just physically whipped Syracuse massive linemen.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, these cats came to play today, right? I mean, Chris Smith was a dude today. Gabriel Rubio looked like the top 100 recruit we thought he was going to be.
Making plays today.
Riley Mills was getting penetrations nonstop and getting held. I mean, they just flat out whipped Syracuse up front. I mean, some of the outside zones may not have looked like outside zones because he was taking 2 steps with the ball and planning and trying to go vertical because they had set the edge so aggressively that he had to cut inside, like in the B gap on an outside zone, and not the typical B gap cut on an outside zone. They just blew it up. I mean, they blew it up. Sean Tucker had nowhere to go, and the only long run he had was just a blown assignment. Justin Adamiola just didn't contain on that inside zone. And they cut it backside. Exactly. I mean, so when you look at his stat sheet, Sean, Sean Tucker, who is a dude, folks, like we talked about him during the week. That kid is a really, really good football player.
No doubt.
He rushed for 60 yards on 15 carries, and 21 of them came on 1 touch.
Right.
I mean, they kept him in check because what did we say was one of the keys to the game? Don't let Sean Tucker beat you. And they didn't.
Mm-hmm.
They said, somebody else is going to have to beat us, and Syracuse isn't good enough for somebody else to beat him.
Right.
But I'll tell you this too, guys. Last week was the best game the linebackers had played all year. This game was better. J.D. Bertrand was unblockable today.
You can't run screens against J.D.
What?
Bertrand.
Yes. Middle screens especially.
Yeah.
Right.
Why do you even try?
Right. But he was beating guys to the point of attacking the run game nonstop. They had a hard time blocking him. Marist was aggressive and much more active. But what did they do with Marist? They were triggering him a lot today. They weren't asking him to slow, flow, and read.
Bingo.
I thought Jack Kaiser, that was a game, a sort of a momentum-changing play, too. They had just gotten a 9-yard run, a 9-yard catch and run. It was 2nd and 1. They tried to do an end around, and Jack Kaiser sniffed it out perfectly for like a 9-yard loss, 6-yard loss.
I thought that was a terrible play call, though.
Oh, yeah. I looked at Ryan and said, why call that there?
On 2nd and 1?
Yeah,
2nd and 1 backed up like you're in your own territory. It made no sense. Made no sense. But Notre Dame sniffed it out perfectly.
Yeah.
I thought Prince Collie played well. I thought if the linebackers play like this the rest of the way, fellas, they're going to be all right.
They're going to be okay.
They're going to be all right.
Agree.
Second game in a row, we've seen them. I mean, because we asked, is the light going to go on for these kids at some point in time? You saw it last week. It was like, it's UNLV. They were better today. I mean, they were you saw the speed that we've been talking about. You saw that today because they were confident. It looked like they had scaled back. Did you guys pick up on this? It looked like they weren't doing as much checking and stuff today on defense.
Agreed. Yeah.
They were just kind of lining up and letting them go.
And they were going. I mean, they were triggered at times, obviously, and that was part of the reason that they were getting pressure on the quarterback, and they were bringing more than Syracuse could handle, things of that nature. But it felt like it was less on their plate, and so they were just able to go out and play.
They just could run.
That was refreshing. It was refreshing.
Yeah. They could just run.
Yeah.
They could just run.
Yeah.
And so that was, that was something that I enjoyed to see. That was definitely something I enjoyed to see. I'm trying to think. Brandon Joseph played like we hoped he would play.
Yes.
I mean, that was good to see. Cam Hart.
Do you think he was injured before they actually took him out? Because Marcus Freeman did talk about it in pregame on ABC, saying, "Look, he wasn't right, and last week was the week that we really noticed it." So
I hope so. I hope so. I hope they were just trying to gut him through because they had games they had to win. I hope so because he was. I mean, they had the 2 picks, right? But then even there was another play where I'm watching it, so I'm like kind of looking at the hole. They're running counter to me.
He filled it, yeah.
And I saw him like, it's like the first time all game. And all of a sudden, 16 comes in, and not only that, but he hits Sean Tucker and stones him, lifts him up, and puts him down. I'm like, okay, you got no chance today.
And that's the Brandon Joseph that we saw in fall camp and in the spring that we haven't really seen a whole lot of, I think, in the regular season right now. And if he was injured, then that makes sense. And if he's healthy now, that makes sense with the way he played today. So
I think the second pick that was called off, but I didn't see anybody offsides. I'm sorry. I looked up, I'm like, who was offsides?
The TV copy was terrible. Like they didn't even tell us it was offsides. Like I didn't even know that that's what the penalty was until people in the chat started saying something about
it. Greg McElroy is not good.
I just wanted to point out that interception was from a single high. He was playing center field.
Yep. Yeah, and he read the quarterback. I mean, the quarterback stared him down.
Yeah,
he read the quarterback's eyes, no doubt about it. But that's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And the coverage, to Brian's point earlier, the coverage by Ben Morrison was so good, it allowed Brandon to play the ball and just go up and get it, as opposed to playing the man. So that was nice. That was perfect. That's how that's teach film right there, right? I mean, that's what you put on teaching film when you're going to clinics. That's clinic film, on how to bracket.
Yeah.
I want to respond to something too, because this is to a point Vince made. Jim Linton said if Del Rio Wilson would have started for Syracuse, it could have been trouble. Don't agree with that, because this is the point we were making. You look at his first series in the game, 3 and out. Second series, they have to kick a 54-yard field goal, and that play only worked because they had a blown coverage that went for 30 yards, right? It wasn't until Notre Dame got out of their game plan that kid started making plays. They went away from – they started sinking their linebackers, getting depth. They were not going to give up the big play, and that just started – he started scrambling. Yeah. And to me, it was a touchdown too early to do that. It was like 24-7, you don't do that. 31-7, okay, cool. Do that. Make them work.
Yeah.
But no, and then you also saw after they started coming back, Notre Dame went back to that aggressiveness, and every time Notre Dame went back to being aggressive, they shut Syracuse down.
Yes. And were there wide receiver drops by Syracuse? Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, there were.
Well, and some of those drops were, I don't know if you guys could see it, but some of those drops were drops because they had a guy coming this way and he had to throw it behind him.
Okay.
Because if he would have let him, he got drilled or picked off.
Gotcha. So they weren't on target.
So
gotcha.
Yeah, because you know how I don't know. I didn't watch the TV game. We couldn't see the TV copy, but I know Syracuse has a weird angles for games for stuff. Yeah. It's just weird.
Yep.
Yeah, there was a couple drops. Notre Dame had missed opportunities too. I mean, so those things balance each other out.
Gotcha.
But some of those drops were good defense, number one, and like the drop on the deep ball. I don't know if he puts that any closer if he can complete that ball. I think he had to put it out on top to have a shot to get it over top of Cam Hart, and that guy couldn't catch it in that regard. So I thought defensively they just still got to clean up some of that stuff, right? But I thought they dominated up front. I thought the coverage for the most part was good. They had about 4 or 5 just MAs, in my opinion. But overall, I mean, the coverage was good. Cam almost had a pick today. They avoided him the whole game. They went after Tariq and Benjamin Morrison.
Oh, I thought he was going to come down with that pick, though. I mean, he broke on that ball perfectly.
He read it perfectly, broke on it.
Man.
It's a good performance. And then, of course, at the end, I mean, geez, the special teams, goodness gracious. I mean.
Well, and look, that's the special teams. We talked about it in the pregame show today. Somebody said the special teams are going to make a play so that Notre Dame wins. And I said, while I believe the special teams can do that, I hope the game isn't in a situation where that's what they need to win, right? But the special teams, if Notre Dame is in the game next week, the special teams made some plays. That's what I'll say. And it's nice to be able to rely on the special teams making plays, man, because it's a lost art. I'm sorry. Special teams is a lost art right now, and Notre Dame is dominating special teams, and it is so great to see. So great to see. Outside of Groupie's miss, obviously, the field goal miss. I mean, that was a bad miss. There's no way to sugarcoat that. That was a bad miss. But other than that, I thought Sott was pinning them deep all game long. Obviously, they got the block punt. Special teams were unbelievable again.
Hey, I'm just going to say this right now. If you're being negative about next week or whatever else in this chat, now's not the time. I'm just going to put you on timeout. Just enjoy the win. If you can't enjoy the win, just go do something else today.
We'll talk about
we can be critical of certain things, but this was a good win. Like, it's funny. People didn't say anything about Syracuse all week. Now it's almost Syracuse sucked. No, Syracuse is a good football team. Notre Dame dominated them. This is who Notre Dame was supposed to be at every position except for one today. I mean, that's the thing is this is who you're supposed to be. Sean, what did I tell you on the drive last night?
Yeah.
They're either going to lose or win convincingly. Remember when I said that to you last night? Yeah. I said, because if they play well enough to let Syracuse be in the game, then they're just going to lose. They're going to find a way to lose. I said, but if Notre Dame plays their game, I don't think this is going to be an overly competitive game.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what it was, because you just kind of felt like if this team comes to play today and plays to their potential, Syracuse isn't good enough to beat them. They're just not.
Agreed. I absolutely agree with
They're
that.
just not. But you still had to earn it.
Dino Babers kind of the way he talked up Notre Dame during the week, I'm like,
Sean, you said that you talked about that last night or yesterday. You were talking to me and you were like, man, Dino thinks this team is gonna, and he was right.
He was right. I'm like, if that team shows up that he talked about all week, they're not going to be within 2 touchdowns of Notre Dame.
Yeah,
and there we are.
Yep, and they weren't. They really weren't.
It should have been even more. But.
Yeah, they left so many points in the field. It's frustrating, and that's got to stop. I mean, at some point, you can't do that against Clemson. I don't think you can't do that much against USC. But for today, it was definitely good enough to get a convincing win.
Yeah.
But I'm going to tell you guys, we've talked about the game now, right? We'll have a little bit more, but I got to say, man, Jack Swarbrick needs to have a serious conversation with Jim Phillips about the officiating in that conference.
Woo, baby.
It is god awful.
It's bad.
Like you guys saw I saw that the touchdown. That was not a touchdown. He was clearly out of
bounds.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand how you get that wrong. And they got it wrong quickly. Like, they didn't review it very long.
No.
Like the face mask, Vince was so pissed off about that. Vince was fired up in the group chat that we have.
Because that was early, obviously. And it was like, the game was still in doubt, that kind of a thing. It was like, dude, that was not a like.
And the penalty for Foskey on the personal foul on the touchdown, plus that, all of a sudden Syracuse is like starting to get the drive off of midfield.
That's 30 yards. That's 30 yards right there.
Right. So, but
Terrible.
it's just bad. I mean, like, I don't know how. I mean, I get that they don't want to call holding all the time, but I mean, there's times where, like, there was a play where Nana's literally trying to chase the ball and he's getting pulled this way.
Yes. And
it's just like, I mean, like, I think you say you can go holding every play. That's nonsense because holding happens, but holding should be called when you impede someone from being having a chance to go make a play on the football.
Correct.
Right. And so it's when Riley Mills is getting his shoulder turned as he's running past, the guys behind him and his shoulder gets yanked back. Guess what? That's a clear holding penalty.
Yeah.
And that stuff's really annoying and frustrating because it impacts the game.
Yeah.
And the reality is that this Notre Dame team got affected by that today. But here's the difference, and here's why I'm willing to talk about that more today than I did against Stanford. Because Notre Dame did not allow that to affect them like they did against Stanford. Because don't let it be close. Take it out of their hands.
Yeah.
And they did that today. You'd see the Notre Dame players looking over to the ref like, you're not going to call holding, and then and they just go right back to the huddle and dominate in the next play.
Because now, and I will also say, because now they know that Marcus Freeman's going to fight for them.
Yeah.
And I don't know that was the case before. Maybe not as much. I'm not saying that they weren't playing because he wasn't fighting for him. But what I am saying is he was clearly fighting for him today, and that makes it a lot easier to just turn your head and go back to the huddle because you know the coach has your back on something that you're passionate about, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
He's always been a player's coach. They love him. I know this. But in the moment, in the game, he was clearly fighting for his players with the referees today. And
it tells me he's also comfortable in the other parts of the game day operation.
Right.
He's now getting more comfortable in some of those other areas. That now he's more comfortable to just kind of let it rip. There's, I think that's part of it too. But honestly, if you're Jack Swarbrick, I'm serious about this because it happens week after week after week. You're even getting screwed over by officiating when you're not even playing an ACC team at home.
Right. It's been worse this year than any other year
brutal.
I can remember. Yeah.
It's brutal.
Yeah.
And I mean, bad replay calls. Like, I still don't understand how they overturned the fumble against Stanford.
Yeah.
And this one was, you say, well, if it's, it's got to be clear evidence. There was clear evidence to me from what I could see on the stadium scoreboard that he was out of bounds. I mean, even the Syracuse fans thought he was out of bounds. It just, because somebody's going to get hurt. Someone's going to get yanked so bad on a hole that they're going to get their knee buckled underneath them, or it's going to cost you a football game in a way that, against a good because look, you can get away with it against Syracuse. That can be the difference in winning and losing against Clemson.
Absolutely.
It can. It'd be when you have two relatively close competitive teams. He's going to have to say, look, yes, we're an ACC partner, but if this doesn't get fixed, we're just going to start because look, if you're ACC, Notre Dame's your savior for football.
Absolutely.
They may not want to think that, but you start pissing Notre Dame off enough, like, you know what? Hey, I handed Michigan a notice letting them know we're not playing you anymore. Don't think I won't do something with y'all. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Don't think Jack Swarbrick won't start going behind the scenes trying to get ACC teams out of the ACC into the SEC in order to get that contract null and void so he can go do something else.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, you may want to be careful with that because it's really bad. And I'll say they didn't screw Notre Dame over because there was a couple missed calls on the other side too. They're just bad.
Yeah, exactly.
I do think sometimes it hurts Notre Dame. Like, they're worse in Notre Dame's favor.
Yeah.
But it's just bad officiating. And I don't know what it is, but it's got to change. Like, Notre Dame's got to start being able to pick their crews. That's got to be part of the deal. We're going to pick our crews because, like I said, the guys that did the Stanford game, Notre Dame didn't lose to Stanford because of the officiating. Notre Dame lost to Stanford because of Notre Dame.
Right.
Correct.
But that was I would say that crew is never doing another game for me ever, ever. And I'm serious.
Yep.
So, like I said, I'm not blaming the officials for why they lost to Stanford. They didn't lose.
But we can still talk about how bad they are.
Out. But today, man, it was bad. And again, it's not. The game would have been a bigger blowout if the refs were. Yeah, just true because they gave them a touchdown at the end. It shouldn't have been a touchdown.
Correct.
But it
and they kept a drive it live or whatever with the phantom face mask and all, and that was a scoring drive for Syracuse too. Yeah. So I mean, and
this game, and that's the thing about this, fellas, is you start getting a little excited about maybe this is the corner because you played a good football team today, and for the second week in a row, you look and say they could have scored close to 60 if they would have done this, this, or this, and again, the game plan that you guys are praising, I think, is being praised more just because of compared to how bad the other ones have been, not so much good relative to what other good teams are doing. You know what I mean? But that's where we're at, but it says a lot about your team when you can say, we just knew that this team had zero answers and we just kept doing this over and over again and they couldn't stop it.
And that's okay.
And I would say it's okay, but it's a good feeling to have. Well, is what I would say.
It's okay to keep going back to things that are working and not trying to outthink yourself. That's what I'll say.
There's got to be a happy medium, and I think you're saying that.
Yes.
But it's nice to watch a team. My point is, it's nice to watch a team that against most teams it still doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
Because what was the complaint we had about Brian Kelly? They just would go out talent people, right? They just had better players. Well, they were losing games this year in games where they clearly had better players.
Correct.
So then you hear the lazy, they just don't have the athletes. And then it's like, no, today's an example of, yep, this is who they're supposed to be. North Carolina game, yep, that's who they're supposed to be. Here's the question. Was this a team taking – and this is the question. This is a rhetorical question that we really won't even find out next week. We're going to find out in 2 weeks in Baltimore. Is this team playing to the level of their competition again? Or is this team taking the corner? That's what's going to be really interesting to find out over the next couple of weeks. We don't know the answer to that today. I will say this. Based on how we saw the head coach conducting himself, based on how we saw them responding to him, based on some of the things we saw and how this team went about its business, I think this is a corner-turning moment, not just playing up to Syracuse. And somebody said, this team doesn't play to levels of competition. Like Syracuse has not beaten anybody and BYU's lost every game since. I'm like, but you don't understand. It's about the perception of what the team views that opponent to be, not about what they actually are, what they did later. They're emotionally ready to play a team that people perceive to be really good. Yeah. Carolina was perceived to be really good, and they are pretty good. BYU is perceived to be really good. They were ranked 16th in the country. And so they emotionally were ready to play. This was different, though, I think, guys. And I don't know if you agree with this, but this felt different than Carolina and BYU. This felt, I don't know, like maybe it's just me. Maybe it's because I was so close to the field. This just felt like this team had a little bit more of just a different attitude and how they went about it. It just wasn't that they were better. It's that they were better, and they knew they were better, and they played like they were better.
Yeah.
And again, I'll say this. If they had the North Carolina game plan today, when the backs are getting the ball in the backfield, still don't see that.
Right.
I think they'd have hung a 60 spot on them.
And we need to see more of that. I mean, Sean and I talked about that in the pregame show. We need to see the backs get more involved. We need to see more two-back offense. I mean, there's still a lot of room for this offense to grow, and from a game plan standpoint and from an execution standpoint, right? But it felt like they turned the corner a little bit today. Like I could see this game plan being effective next week if certain things are executed.
Nah. At Clemson D-line, you're not just going to run duo all day, and they know it's coming.
I get that. But you need to complete passes on the outside to loosen up the defense.
Exactly. And that's what we didn't really see today. Because, again, Vince, for much of the game, there wasn't a receiver wider than 3 yards outside the tight ends. I mean, the entire second half, on first and second down, they basically lined up in a bunch.
They did.
11
everybody into the box.
There.
You can't do that against Clemson.
Right.
Agree with that.
That's my thing.
Yeah.
That's my thing. Yep. But overall, again, you didn't play Clemson today. You're playing Syracuse today. Right. So you got time to figure that out. But man, last week, guys, I didn't enjoy that win. I didn't. It was a 44-21, and I didn't enjoy it. I didn't. I I didn't really enjoy the BYU win because I just knew North Carolina game I enjoyed. This game I really enjoyed just because you felt like this is what we thought they were going to be. And I think that's the final takeaway for me, fellas, is just when I look at it is that's really what I saw. Any final thoughts before we get to the super chats, fellas, that you want to kind of have for the game?
I will say I enjoyed this game for a couple of different reasons. Number one, I actually enjoyed the noon kickoff. Went right from pregame show to game to we're doing the postgame show, and I think there's still daylight outside. So, like, I enjoyed the kickoff time. I was enjoying yelling at the TV because I felt like Tommy Rees was listening to me. So that was good. I mean, there were times where I really enjoyed this game. There were times where I was kind of white-knuckling it at times where I was like, oh, God, they're going to throw this away. Like, this is going to end poorly. Oh, yeah. But then they, as you so eloquently went through the 3 possessions where it was just like boom, 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 boom.
Defense, offense, special teams.
All of a sudden, I was like, this game's boring. It's over. Yeah. Let's go. You know what I mean? Like, and that's what you should feel in 10 out of the 12 games that Notre Dame plays every year. Like, the game should be over at that point. Let's start writing the post-game show. Like, that's where we should be with this team. And this is the first time I felt that this year.
Yeah. Yeah, I had my game observations written basically with 5 minutes left in the game.
Right. Exactly. 100%.
When they scored to make it 38-17, I was like, okay, let me put the final finishing touches on this.
Yes.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Yeah. I wanted to say one thing, Vince. The noon kickoff sucked for me because I didn't get in my hotel till like 3 o'clock in the morning last night. So I'm like, oh my God, I got to get up at 7 o'clock. This is going to suck. But no, I'm with you though. I get up because I guess that's kind of what I'm used to, right? I mean, Division III football, you have noon or 1 o'clock games. You don't have 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock. You know what I mean? I'm just in the habit of, as a player and a coach at that level. Same thing with 1AA. I mean, I think when I was at Duquesne, I think we only had like 2 night games at Penn and then home against Robert Morris. Every other game was like, 1 o'clock. You just kind of get up and you're getting right into your routine. And there's nothing else to think about. Get right into your routine. But I'm not going to lie to you. When I rolled into the hotel about 2:45, and Sean helped keep me up a lot late last night. So we talked a lot of ball last night on the drive. That was a lot of fun. But when I rolled in the hotel at 3 o'clock for a noon kickoff, I'm thinking, man.
Did you at least get to have some breakfast this morning?
No. Well, because I just figured they'd have – and they did. They had breakfast. They had breakfast at the stadium. But, yeah, I'm going to go get some food here when we're done. But that's going to do it for this part of the show, guys. We do have some super chats. I want to answer some of those super chats before we get out of here. Just a reminder for people, we don't bring up questions and stuff. This isn't really like a Q&A, like a mailbag type of thing. But when people give super chats, we definitely want to get to those and answer those. So we have some super chats we're going to get to here, fellas. Alan Watson with one. Thank you, Alan. As well as we ran it today, the play action pass should have been there all day. What happened? They just didn't really try it. I mean, really. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't there from an execution standpoint. Yeah,
right.
They didn't do it enough. I mean, it's like, here's the thing: you only need to hit like 1 or 2 to let that other team know, like, hey, man.
Absolutely, and they're going to have to do that next week. They are, and they can do that. They just have to execute it, and they have to call it. So they didn't need to today.
Yep. Will ND says with super chat. Thank you, Will. Brian Mason for Broyles, loving the blocked punts. That's been the bright spot. I mean, there's been Blake Grupe's missed a couple field goals, which, it can't happen. But I don't know. I've said this, guys, and I could be wrong. I don't put missed field goals on coaches unless the coaches are in their ear all the time. And I don't believe he is. But the rest of it, other than the return against BYU, I mean, this special teams has been lights out. That's why I laughed during the press conference on Tuesday. Some reporters asked him, he starts talking about how bad this kick return has been. And I'm like, have you watched this special teams all year? And then of course they get one chance to return a kick today, and Chris Tyree takes it out over past the 30, over 30 yards for a really good, drive. But man, they've been great all year. I mean, John Sott's been good. He actually had a little inconsistent day today, but nothing bad. But Brandon Joseph, there was twice today, fellas, where the ball bounced, and I'm like, oh, it's about to roll. And Brandon Joseph ran up and grabbed it off the bounce that saved 15, 20 yards. He's done a great job with that all year. He really has. I think there was one game early. Was it Marshall or Ohio State? I didn't think he did a great job. But other than that, he's great at not about minimizing the bounce
Correct.
Getting everyone away, then the ball hits, and
you
then he
need
plays
that.
it. Yes.
That is such an underappreciated aspect of punt returning.
Yes.
Is to not let that ball bounce and let them get around it and down it inside
and that
the
was
10-yard line.
Vince, I can't tell how many times Vince went off about that in the press box. I mean, let me just, or in text or whatever, like, feel the ball, you know?
Seriously, man. Just catch it out of bounds. It's fine.
It's maddening.
Even if you just catch it and fall down, like it's better than letting it roll.
But yeah, he's been brilliant. I mean, he has been brilliant this year as a special teams coach.
When they get more speed back there,
did you guys see Josh Burnham was running down there on kickoffs today? Did you guys notice that?
Yeah, I did.
Speaking of long speed, yeah, he's an impressive looking athlete, man. We saw watching him during pregame, like that boy's got a chance to do something.
They're going to break a couple next year. I predict.
Oh yeah, Sean, you texted that during the show.
Yeah,
you were like, they're going to score. What did you say? 3? Is that what you said? 3? They're going to have 3 punt returns for touchdowns next year.
Because you can just see the blocking. You see the opportunities that Brandon just doesn't have the speed and the shiftiness.
Right.
So we can take advantage.
But you put a Peyton Bowen, Dylan Edwards.
Heck yeah.
Yep. No doubt.
They'll all of a sudden go from good to dynamic.
Yeah.
15 yards. No, I mean, it's absolutely right.
Yeah.
Tyler Evans with the Super Chat. Can we call Notre Dame block punt you? And I love the pick 6 to start the game. I mean, you're talking about a team that struggled to get turnovers.
Right.
Starts the game off with a pick 6. And here's the thing. It was a great read for the interception, but that return was pretty good too. He had to make some dudes miss.
And he was real close to getting that ball stripped. I don't know if anybody else saw that.
Let's be real, fellas. Let's be real about this too. If he doesn't score, it's not a given Notre Dame gets 7 out of that. You know what I mean? With this offense. Let's be real about that.
And we hadn't seen any offensive plays up to that point, obviously. And so we didn't realize, I mean, I thought that Notre Dame was going to have success running the ball. We didn't know that they were going to be like a hot knife through butter. And the red zone has been their Achilles heel all season on both sides of the ball. So it's like, if he doesn't get in, they may not score here.
Yep.
So I was like, get in the end zone.
Yep. Now they went 4 of 6. Notre Dame's offense went 4 of 6 in the red zone today for touchdowns. They went 6 of 6 overall, 4 of 6 touchdowns, which is good. Defense still allowed 3 touchdowns on 3 red zone drives. I can't answer. I can't figure it out.
Right.
I mean, they've literally this is now 20 red zone trips, and teams have scored 17 touchdowns in 20 red zone trips.
And I think
imagine how good this defense's numbers would be if they would stop doing that. If they could just make a stop in the red zone.
I think it's 12 in a row.
Crazy.
I think it was 9 in a row coming into this game, and they did 3 today. So I think it's 12 in a row. 12 straight possessions.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
It's nuts. It's nuts. Next super chat, AST 12321. You guys are gonna have to answer this because I don't watch the TV copy. I was at the game. AST 12321 with the super chat. Thank you very much, Brian. What did you think when announcers talked about how they need to run more duo? I tell you how I would have felt. I'd have lost my, you know what. First of all, I don't like Greg McElroy. Period. But anyway,
that was the only sane thing he said all day. How about that? Because I was very unimpressed with the announcing today. And again, I come at it from a situation where I do this stuff. So like when you don't know that Jaden Thomas is a wide receiver, not a tight end, that's a massive problem. When Notre Dame has a 1st and 10 and you are literally playing 5 defensive backs 7+ yards off, he's like, now's the time to take a shot. I'm like, no, now's the time to hand off. And they did, and they gained 14 yards. It's like, dude, it's not the time to take a shot, man. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like, it was not good. And
I didn't listen to the game, but I did walk by him before the game. That's how I knew he was doing the game.
Oh,
because he walked past us going into the press box.
It was bad. Great. It was bad.
It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun. Mary Kay Queen with it. Sean, did you have any comments that you wanted to add about your boy Greg McElroy before we move on to Mary's question? I just see your face.
He's a good dude, man. He's just.
You ain't got to lie, Sean. You ain't got to lie.
He didn't. No, literally, the time I've been around him, he's actually a really cool dude, man.
I don't know him personally.
He's just not as good at his job. Like he's cool in person, but he just said some things that make you. It was almost like he was a late addition to the broadcast.
Like they called him up this morning. And they're like, dude, we need you to do a game. Here's a roster. Memorize it.
I didn't have a chance to talk to the coaches or anything this week. I'm just going to win.
Because here's the thing, even if you think Jaden Thomas is a tight end, it's still not 14 personnel.
Oh, man.
You're an eye back. I mean, it's about as easy as it is to see that ain't one, that's two.
It was rough.
Mary Kay Queen with a super chat. Thank you, Mary Kay. The team looked great today in a lot of ways. Agree. Lots to feel good about. Agree. But how can Reese get Pine's head right next week? We definitely need him to play better against Clemson.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Vince.
I was going to say, I don't blame Tommy Reese for Pine's issues today, right? Because I felt like he set Pine up for some success and he just didn't execute that success. I'm sorry. That's the way I saw the game play out. And
But who coaches him Monday to Friday, Vince?
Well, I get that part. I get that from a play calling standpoint, from a Saturday standpoint.
But his job is to be the play caller and the quarterback coach.
How do you coach a kid not to skip a ball and you're throwing it 10 yards to the side?
He rushed his technique. I mean, that's all. At some point in time, I mean, look, when the offensive line played with bad technique last year, what did we say? Well, it ain't Jeff Quinn's fault. We said, but Jeff Quinn's got to get these guys to play with better technique. I mean, you have two quarterbacks in a row in this season that have had those issues, right? That have had those rushing the mechanics. I mean, Tyler had some misses like that where he would just kind of rush his technique and, their technical issues. I mean, yes, part of this is Drew Pine's fault. Yes, you've got to make that throw, right? I mean, there's no question about it, but it's at the same time, you guys know my stance. When a kid consistently makes the same mistakes over and over and over again, at some point in time, I got to say, what are you doing during a week of practice? Are you just doing scheme all week and not focusing on the mechanics of it? Because if you're going to put in these now screens during the week and you haven't run this a lot, you need to rep the heck out of that footwork wise.
Agree with that.
And that's what got him his technique looked a hot mess, right? So, I get what you're saying, Vince, and you're not wrong. I mean, kids have to take accountability for their play, but his issues a lot of times are just he's doing the same things over and over again where I'm just locking on this guy. I'm not seeing this read. And like today, it was like it looked like he had not really been coached up on how to properly catch and turn. I mean, Vince, you know this. When you're going to run that stuff, you've coached high school football, you've coached offense. If you're going to do something 2 times in the game, you got to rep it 50 times.
Absolutely.
And that's just the reps you're going to get in period. That doesn't include you've got to drill it and individual work and all that other kind of stuff. So
there's no doubt about that.
Yeah, that part I'm going to put on Tommy Reese. Play calling wise, you guys are right. I mean, he called plays where guys were open. Drew's I don't blame him for not throwing the ball to Tobias Merriweather on time. I don't blame Tommy for that because clearly he knew what the read was.
Right.
He stared at Tobias the whole time. He just wouldn't let it rip.
Right.
He's just got to let it rip. But at the same time, it's kind of like, you got to do some stuff to get him going. Right, you're gonna have to do some more stuff to get him rolled, to get him comfortable. That's what they're gonna have to figure out a way. And if you're in some of that stuff, you have to coach him up to make sure his technique is where it needs to be.
What else? What else do you want him to give him?
Well, here's a thought: run an RPO
past the mayor is like a layup.
But here's my thing, Sean. In those type of throws, right? Completely agreed. That's on Drew. But every quarterback misses those type of plays. What happens with Notre Dame is those become exacerbated because the other stuff isn't working, right? So those kind of misses. We've seen good quarterbacks miss on third down before, but Notre Dame's margin for error with the pass game is so small that's the kind of thing. Like you've got to get Drew's confidence going, right? Somehow, some way. It's when it's during the week of practice. Get him out of the pocket, run an RPO where he's thrown to a wide open guy on first down, not third down. And then maybe you don't get into that third down situation where the pressure's ramped up because you were hitting stuff on first and second down. So again, Drew's got to answer for the things that are on him. The 3rd and 3 miss, I don't put that on Tommy Reese because I've seen Drew hit that throw 8-9 times. So that's the thing I won't blame on a coach is when I've seen you have success with something, but in a key moment you just miss, that's on you.
Right.
I've seen Drew Pine hit Michael Mayer a dozen times this year on little 5-yard outcuts.
Correct.
Right. And he missed it. That's on Drew.
Yeah.
That's on Drew.
It. Yeah.
The technique on the screen stuff, that's on the coaching because you clearly didn't get him ready to execute from a technique standpoint. Not throwing to Tobias on the post route, I think that's on Drew. I mean, he was looking at it. He knew that's where he's supposed to go with the football. Locking in on Michael Mayer, that's on Tommy because you're still here's the thing. Why are you calling a play on third down where Michael Mayer is your primary read? Can you just give me a couple third downs where he's not a primary read? Where the quarterback knows he's a decoy?
Now, here's what I will say. There were a couple third downs where he looked at Mayer, came off of him and went
because
to somebody.
There's 3 dudes on him. Right?
Hey, man, He was throwing there before when there was 3 dudes on him, okay? So
it's still happening way too much.
I
mean,
saw Drew Pine
Vince,
take a little baby step, man.
No, because I could point to 2 or 3 plays last week where he went away from Mayer. You know, like the third down throw that Lorenzo Styles dropped. Mayer was open. He just went to Lorenzo. I mean, it doesn't happen often. That's my thing.
Yeah, agreed.
And so, you know, those are things where it's like, hey, dude, he ain't a target on this play. You know, call something where Mayer's not a target. You know what I mean?
Like, keep him blocking.
Well, I don't know if I want to do that because I want to use him to occupy the defense. Like I want to get them. I want them to triple cover him. You just tell Drew, I'm having Mayer run this route because I know they're going to cover him this way. We're throwing behind it. You know what I mean? That's
a perfect example of that. I think it was first half, red zone inside the 10, third down. They saw the edge pressure coming. I would have signaled to Mayer to come back. Don't attach. Block this dude. And then if you want to release to the flat, but we have a one-on-one outside, I can work that. I can throw the fade on that or throw the slant on that. But just to trust him, because he's not going to stand in there. He's not 6'2",
right.
2. He's not about to stand in there and give Michael Mayer the extra step to be able to run that fade in that situation. And that goes back to him getting banged up the week before and him feeling that. And no, I'm not about to wait that extra second because Mayer, if he had waited an extra half second, was coming open man to man. So, I mean, I get what you're saying. At some point, look, kid, we're not asking you to perform miracles.
No.
We're not asking you to do that.
Not at all.
No.
We're asking you to do the simple things in the passing game.
Yeah.
And if you do those, you'll be fine. You know, he said something interesting this week, and my guy, he said he met with the meeting. He was like, yeah, I was just throwing an extra 10 minutes with the wide receivers. And Malik said, that's not enough.
Yeah, I know. Well, on a Tuesday, you throw 10 minutes because he's got to do a press conference. But
yeah, but I'm like, man, 10 minutes isn't enough. He's like, heck no. Like that should be like 30.
But that's only on a Tuesday when he's got press obligations and Katie and it's not like when Malik was playing, the press would be in the Goog and we couldn't see practice, and then they would just come kind of walking late. The press conferences now are like right there on the practice facilities. And so it's like, dude, you got to come over here. For all we know, he went back out there afterwards.
Well,
you know what I mean? But Malik's
point is, who would be mad
if
they came over to you and said, yo, you're going to have to wait another 15 minutes on Drew?
Oh, every single person in the media.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Every single one. I mean,
everyone.
Whether they shouldn't, but, you know.
Everyone.
The point is
well, maybe you're right. Maybe they will be upset.
Yeah, he's got to put in the work, and he's got to make those plays. And again, I'm saying he made mistakes. Like, to me, when I'm evaluating Drew today, is the stuff I'm going to blame him for is stuff where we know he can make that throw because he's made it.
Sure.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, yeah, that's on you because we know you were coached up to do that because we've seen you do it a dozen times. When I see them put new stuff in and his technique is a mess, like you didn't do enough work that week.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as a coach, you got to, if you're going to put something new in, you rep the heck out of it. It's going to get up 60 to 70% of my individual this week is the footwork for this new thing that we're putting in. And so those are things where Coach Reed's got to get better. End of the day, though, you guys are right also in that Drew's got to step up and say, I got to go make plays. I got to go make the reads and I got to go make the plays. This stuff ain't working. I'm watching it on film every single week. And if it doesn't get better, I mean, I hate to say this and I don't want to do this. It's not an ideal situation, but at some point in time, you got to say, I got to give somebody else a shot to do it. You know, I mean, if we see the same stuff next week, you know, some of the comments about, you know, I don't know why some people have a personal issue with Tyler Buckner. It's clearly personal at this point in time with some people.
It is.
You know, but you're talking about Drew Pine and he's the this, that, and the other, and he's completing this and he's 60% passer. I'm like, Ty, look, he hasn't been a 60% passer in a minute. I mean, he was 48.1 against Stanford, 50% against UNLV, for Pete's sake. UNLV, and he was sub 50 today. He went 9 of 19 today. He's been a 50, like he has a completion percentage the last 3 weeks that's lower than what Brandon Wimbush did. but he ain't rushing for 200 yards like Brandon Wimbush did against Boston College, right? So you can live with it because Brandon will throw a post over your head and he'll run for 50, 60, 70 yards and sometimes go off, right? So, some point in time, he's going to have to start making these plays. Yes, there are things that they can do in the RPO game and things like that to make those plays. You talk about he's only 6 feet tall. Okay, then here's a thought. Get him out of the pocket a couple times. Did you guys see how clean he looked on that bootleg where he saw the guy jump? Was it Mitchell Evans or Mayer? I couldn't see. It was on the other side. But they jumped the tight end on the bootleg, and he immediately went downfield, saw Dion streaking across on a drag route, turned his shoulders around, and fired that sucker to Dion.
Yeah.
Simple. It was a 1-2 read, fellas.
Yeah.
Out of the pocket, no line in front of him, 1-2 read, bam.
Yeah.
Now, you can't do that all game, but give him 3 or 4 of those. Give him more work on the screen game. I love the now screens. Now coach him up to execute it properly. Run more RPO hitches where he's thrown to the wide side. They were trying to run RPO. The only RPO I think they threw today, it might have been a play action, was a throw where the guy was 2 yards outside the line of scrimmage or outside the box when they called it. Come on now. Like, what are you doing? Right? But let him throw some of those wide RPOs. Just things to kind of get him into a rhythm because like the thing I will say is the pass game, fellas, is it's not super complicated, but it's a lot of low percentage stuff. Yeah. Seam routes, post routes, outside goes, hitting Mayer on drags. It's not, you'll watch nowadays, quarterbacks will throw 35 passes and you'll watch the game, like 9 of them are drop back throws. The rest of them are screens, RPOs, quicks, stuff like that. And those are the things I think that they need to do. And if they're able to do that, then, then it's up to Drew to say, okay, now it's your turn to make those plays. But when they got him out of the pocket today, Drew's been a pretty good player out of the pocket. He's not a threat to run, but he can scramble for 5-6 yards if you give him room. And he showed today, he throws the ball, pretty good ball on the run, but it simplifies the read.
Yes,
right.
Exactly.
And then you run a couple of those bootlegs and then you haul up and you say you're throwing a backside running back wheel. It's not a read. There's no read. Fake the boot, throw it back to on the wheel. So there's other things like that too, fellas, where you've got to have some plays where there isn't a read.
Yeah.
It's just that's where you're going. Throw it. And, we'll see. But really good questions and really good responses, guys. Great answers from the both of you. Tyler Evans with a super chat. Thank you, Tyler. Both 7 stepped up when Notre Dame needed them. I'll say this. Foskey did not play real well overall, I didn't think, today. But he did make some very clutch plays in this game today. But I loved how Audric Estime bounced back. And here's the thing.
Absolutely.
Been hard on Tommy Rees, even this week. I didn't love the game plan, but I'll say this. I love the fact that the first 2 plays of this game, which are clearly designed to be the first 2 plays of this game, were handoffs to Audric Estime. What did Ryan say to you in your guys' show yesterday, Sean? And you agreed with him wholeheartedly. Yeah. My one request for this Notre Dame coaching staff is don't give up on Audric Estime.
Yo, we talked about that in the pregame show today, Ryan. 100%. I said, look, if this was last year's staff, he might not play again the rest of the year.
Yep.
Because that's how their doghouse worked. I said, I don't know what this staff is going to do. We're going to find out today, but I pray that he gets – I said, start him today. Put him in the game right away. And they did. It was amazing.
Bam, fullback dive. Bam, fullback dive.
Like, I was joking around that Tommy Rees is listening to our show as he's walking around during pregame.
And he's reading our stuff. Hey, I wrote an article like a week ago saying he needs to get Tobias and Dion on the field together. And,
I'm just saying.
But Audric responds. So how does Audric respond, right? You show faith in him, he's going to reward you. 20 carries for 123 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Protecting that football, man. 2 hands when he was making contact. Like, let's get this kid rolling.
That's how you get your kids to that's a player's coach right there.
Yeah.
And that's where you want to be like, hey, man, because now Audric's going to play a little looser, not looser with the football, but looser in that, like, hey, I'm not going to beat myself up. I made a mistake. Fix it. But you also know, like, you don't want kids looking – you want kids to know there's accountability, and there was accountability. They benched him. He didn't go back in the game last week. Accountability.
Yeah.
But then they brought him back and say, hey, man, we need you. We need you. You're too important for us. You can't do this.
Yes.
They give him the ball the first 2 plays of the game, and it just was the beginning of just a great performance. I loved that. I thought that was a tone setting, not just the physicality of the plays, but it was a tone setting. Hey, we believe in you. Now go do it. and he did it, and he
Yeah.
did it. It was great. It was great. And to Tyler's point, he stepped up. Super chat from Nick Lane. Where can Drew Pine go from here, or is this his ceiling? Look, this isn't his ceiling because we've seen him play multiple games where he's better than this.
I think that there's, and we talked about this in the pregame show. I think there's a happy medium. He's got to find that medium. He's got to find that medium, right? He's not going to be the guy from those first 2.5 games.
Well, I say first game. I thought he was okay. I thought he was solid against BYU.
Yeah, solid.
I think that's a repeatable performance for me.
Correct. He needs to find
North
that happy
Carolina,
medium.
He's not going to be that guy every game.
No. And you can't expect him to be, right? Then you're expecting Drew Pine to not be Drew Pine, right? There's a happy medium where he could land where I think he's going to be just fine. He hasn't
and that's the BYU game.
Yet.
That performance, it was solid. Made some nice throws, made some bad reads, and you're just like, come on, dude. But that's who he is. Yeah. I mean, that's where that part's on Drew. Yeah. There's a mental block in his head right now where he's pressing. And Coach Reese has got to find a way to get him out of that. That's his job. But at some point in time, to what Sean said is like, at some point in time, he's got to just say, hey, I got this. I got this. And it can't be because you took Michael Mayer out to force him to read somewhere. I mean, you can't take the best tight end in college football out to force your quarterback to go somewhere else. That's dumb.
He needs to be on the field
because
all
if
the time.
It doesn't work. I'm ripping him for not having Michael Mayer on the field.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, I would never, ever, ever, ever take him off the field in a game. Would I take him out during a couple of sessions in practice? Yeah, I would. But I would never take him out on a Saturday.
But we talked about that. You can only do that, in my opinion. I know you guys probably talk about it in your show too, but you can only do that if the goal is you want to rest him. Right. You can't take him out as punishment for what Drew's doing. Right. But you say, hey, look, we're going to give him some drills off because he's taking a beating.
Right.
And I think the byproduct of that
there you go. It's a byproduct.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. Right. Because I do want him in every play on a Saturday. So giving him some rest during the week, I'm okay with that too.
Right. And then there's a benefit to that, right?
Right.
And that's
exactly the byproduct.
Jacob Saylor with a super chat. Hey, Dad, great win. Go Irish. I don't know who Dad is, but hey, there you go.
Tell me something I didn't
You're welcome, son. Michael Burke, 1646. Do you guys know what that means?
Ooh. Well, 16 could be Joseph, right? Okay. 46, I got nothing. So
Michael, you're going to have to let us know, man, what 1646 means.
I'm not sure.
I don't quite know what that means. But Michael Burke said, Joseph started my day with happiness. I mean, he really did.
Yes.
He really did. I mean, that was just like that crowd was loud. I mean, they were, and he just.
It's 16 for 6.
Oh, there you
go.
Yeah.
Okay.
I applaud that.
That is really well done, Michael. Really. Look at him with the analyze this. You're good. You're good. Really well done, Sean. Yes,
like
Michael, that is excellent. That is excellent. Because we normally can kind of figure out what is, what is, because the super chats, for those who don't know, anytime Michael gives a super chat, it is
there's a hidden meaning.
There's a meaning behind it.
Yeah.
Right. And so, really, really well done. Really well done.
That was good.
Relly Q with a super chat. This team played 3 out of 4 ranked teams and have beaten all of them except one, but lost to Stanford at home. Can today?
I don't understand Stanford.
Yeah. Can today be who we are at home too? It'd be nice. It'd be
awesome.
Nice. Yeah, it'd be nice.
I just want all the teams for the rest of the year to be ranked. That's
the one team that they didn't beat, they led for over half the game. They didn't give up the lead till like 30 seconds of 14 seconds in the third quarter.
Yeah, exactly.
It's puzzling. It's puzzling, Relly Q. There's no doubt about it. Another super chat from Relly Q. How much of the running game and dominating line of scrimmage is Tommy Reese designed versus Freeman? As Marcus Freeman said, he wants to be the identity of the team. He had to have a hard talk with Tommy Reese after last game. I'm going to say, no, I don't agree with that. I mean, they've run for over 200 yards for the last 5 games.
Right.
Tommy Reese didn't all of a sudden try to run the football. They tried to run the football a lot. What was it? I mean, first couple games, they tried to run it early in the season, Vince. They just weren't good at it. I mean, they just weren't good at running the ball early in the year.
Right.
So he's always tried to run it. I think what it comes down to is I don't think it's either one of them. I don't think it's Tommy Reese's design, and I don't think it's Marcus Freeman. I think it's Harry Heastan.
Yeah.
You're seeing what a Harry Heastan offensive line looks like.
Yes.
This is what we said. We said we didn't know how many games it would take. And it took about 2.5 games. But ever since the second half of the Cal game, this has been a different offensive line. Even the 150 yards against Stanford, go back and watch that game again if you like to torture yourself. But they're running for 4 or 5 yards a pop against 9-man boxes with 6 blockers.
Correct.
I mean, it was just ridiculous.
It's what it was. It's what it was.
Ridiculous. I mean, it's just like, okay, this is what you can count it to. Talent. You have players. You have talented offensive linemen. They were just they didn't all of a sudden become talented. They were always talented. They just needed to learn how to play, and be taught how to play.
Right.
You have really talented backs. Vince, we talked about this summer. This backfield has a chance to be one of the 5 best running back groups in the country. And we're seeing that. You've had 2 back-to-back 120-plus yard performances. Logan Diggs had 130 this last week. Audric Estimé went for 123 this week. Different backs. How many teams can say that? Chris Tyrese had 2 games where he's been over 100 yards of total offense. How many teams can say they've had 3 backs go for over 100 yards of total offense in non-blowout games?
Yeah.
Meaning like they didn't have a back go for 100 and, like Josh Adams against UMass in 2015, right? Or mop-up minutes. And so there's talent, right? This isn't Harry Hiestand taking a bunch of bums and teaching them how to be really good football players. It's Harry Hiestand taking talent that existed last year. Remember how bad Zeke Correll was last year?
I do.
Zeke Correll with good coaching?
Yeah.
Or Zeke Correll with bad coaching?
Zeke
Correll with good coaching is a dude.
Yeah.
He struggled the first couple games just like everybody else on offense. But ever since that second game, ever since really about halfway through the Cal game, Zeke has been really good.
Yes.
Really good. He was terrible last year. Why?
Yeah.
Good coaching versus bad coaching.
It is sometimes that simple.
Yeah. And, I mean, the talent was always there.
Correct.
It's just now the talent's being put in position to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why they're thriving. I have another super chat from Milton fan, Caveman Voice. Don't hold out on us, Vince. So I don't know what that means.
It's a sports talk thing. I once mistakenly used kind of a silly voice for Tommy Rees and like the obvious things that you need to do, and Milton fan really enjoys that for some reason. So you're just gonna have to come back, man. I don't know.
Is that something you did on IB Nation Sports Talk?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, we're gonna save the Caveman voice for IB Nation Sports Talk.
Yeah,
that'll be a unique thing to them.
And I'll give it to you, man, because you gave us a super chat. I'll give it to you later, in the week.
Okay. McKay Rippey, throwback game. The ABC crew seemed disappointed Notre Dame owned the orange. Big step forward if we play with this intensity at home. Yeah, that's a good sign when ESPN's like, if that's in fact how it went down, that ESPN's bummed that Notre Dame dominated because their storyline got diminished.
Oh, 100%.
I can only imagine how the pregame storyline was about Syracuse.
I'm sure. So, I purposely didn't watch a lot of the pregame stuff, but it was.
I haven't watched Game Day all year, and it's so wonderful.
The in-game banter was very much that way, and it was annoying.
Well, I mean, Notre Dame fans should be used to that. I feel like the NBC crew also.
I know. Well, okay.
Does that.
I know this is a tangent, but I'm going on it anyway. Why are they bringing somebody from the other team onto the NBC broadcast at halftime?
Yeah, like was that just for Stanford?
No,
they do that every week.
They have done that every home game. Every home game, Brian. Why? Why do I need to see Kenny Mayne, who is a backup quarterback at UNLV, talk about that game? Why?
Hey, Kenny Mayne actually played football?
He was a backup he backed up Randall Cunningham or something.
Yeah.
I got to hear that like 13 times during the broadcast.
He had some really good college stories. If you,
he messed up his knee and it ended his career. But yes, he was a quarterback, a D1 quarterback.
Wow,
who knew?
Okay. Hey, and Ryan just texted me. He said, "Tell Michael that he needed to put Brandon Joseph yards in that super chat." He said 16 for 29 and 6, which would have been 1,642 and 96. So yeah, I kind of got to agree with Ryan on that one, but we always appreciate it. And thank you for the super chat, Mr. Rippey. Isaac Aldape says Notre Dame found the perfect strategy to adopting for noise in the second half, completely clear out the stadium.
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah, exactly.
Yes, make everyone go home.
Yes.
I'll tell you what, man, that was a loud stadium today.
Was it?
Very loud stadium. Yeah, because it's only 55,000 people, but it's a dome. It traps everything inside. It got loud. And guess what? Notre Dame handled it well outside of that one series because that's what they practiced. Imagine that. They went on the road against a ranked team and actually prepared for noise. Who knew? Who knew? That was a shot to the 2019 Georgia game, by the way, for those who don't know. Another super chat from Tyler Evans. Thank you, Tyler. I told you, Vince, that special teams would make a play, but I said punt return, but I'll take the pick six. Hey, man, punt return set up a touchdown today. They blocked a punt that Notre Dame recovered at the 2. No, wait a minute. Didn't they kick a field goal on that drive? No, that was another drive they got inside the 10.
Because they punched it in on the first play.
That was another drive. I'm thinking of another drive where it was Syracuse that settled for a field goal. And so anyway, sorry. Or no, hold on a second. What am I thinking of?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm thinking of something else. Sean Swain with a super chat. Thank you, Sean. One name I've been looking for all season but never hear about is Jordan Patelho. Just want to give a much deserved shout out. Overall thoughts on Jordan Patelho. I mean, he played well today. He had the big sack late. I thought he played well when he came in the second half. He did a pretty good job.
Yeah. I mean, he's kind of, his role at the moment is to kind of come in when the game is no longer really in doubt. Although he's been pretty good on special teams as well. He hasn't gotten a bunch of defensive snaps this year, but he's been all over special teams. And obviously, well, I have a problem with Jordan Patelho because he couldn't corral that block punt. He let the talker get the ball away from him. So yeah. He did that. All right. Talker recovered the fumble.
Oh, boy.
I just got a text message, fellas. Somebody, because I don't look at scores really. I do at times, but today I haven't looked at scores. So this week we did our predictions, and I was the only person that predicted Kansas State to beat Oklahoma State.
You're winning that one.
Holy moly. Did you guys see the score of that game?
You didn't predict this.
It's 41-0. I predicted a 3-point win.
Yeah, you didn't predict
I didn't predict this. 41-0. I did say that I think that Oklahoma State's played like 5 really tough games in a row that I think they're going to hit a wall. That's one heck of a freaking wall that they hit today. Good Lord.
Bigger than that is Spencer Sanders going out.
Did he get hurt?
Yeah.
That's not good.
That's the big thing.
That's not good. I hate seeing stuff like that. 41-0. Wow. It's 35-0 at halftime. Maltavius with a super chat. Thank you, sir, very much. Got a chance to meet him at the Jeremiah Love commitment ceremony. There's a time to get into somebody's you-know-what. There's also a time to build somebody up. TR needs to read the room. However, overall, good game. I will say this. Number one, I agree with Sean completely. Stop showing him in the press box. You're doing it to try to catch him in a moment.
Correct.
And I hate gotcha stuff.
Yes.
However, I'm also a believer that on Saturdays when you're calm as a position coach, as a coordinator, you have your energy Monday to Friday. Saturday's kind of a chill out mode. You know what I mean? Because eventually you yell at a kid enough, he's just going to start tuning you out.
Yeah.
Right? That's just kind of my 2 cents on it. But look, the reality is coaching is frustrating when you feel like you've coached a kid up to do something and he doesn't do it. It can be frustrating. Milton Fan 15 with a super chat, another super chat. How would be Harry Hiestand would be a good offensive coordinator for some team? There's a reason Harry Hiestand has never been an offensive coordinator. Because Harry Hiestand doesn't want to be an offensive coordinator, which means he would not be in a good offensive. Some people are just meant to be. Look, some coordinators are not meant to be head coaches.
Yeah.
Some assistant coaches are not meant to be coordinators.
Yep.
That's just the reality of it. They're just better there.
That's okay.
It's okay.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yep. The comeback kid said, you guys mentioned Jordan Patel. He looked great. He definitely looked good late. I mean, I thought that they put some waves in the second half against them a little bit, and he had some good rushes late in the game. There's no doubt. He was the one. There was one play. I thought Riley Mills got the pressure because Jordan cleaned up the sack.
Yeah.
And I thought that Riley pressured him into Jordan. Well, what happened is Jordan had the initial pressure, pushed him into Riley, then Riley pushed him back into Jordan. It's a great motor play.
Yeah.
It's just you just hope that you can see more of that version of Jordan Patelho, not the one we saw against Marshall. Because if that version of Jordan Patelho can help you, then you're gonna have some more speed kind of coming at teams off the edge. Because he is a twitchy kid coming off the edge, fellas. There's no doubt about it.
Speaking of picks, my upset special definitely hit.
Which was yours again?
I had Louisville over Wake Forest.
Yep.
Louisville's winning that game with 12 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, 48-14.
Wow. That's going to save Satterfield's job. So I did
Man.
not pick that as my upset, but I did say to Ryan that I said, don't be shocked. There was a couple games I said, don't be shocked by today. One of them was that. One of them was obviously I picked Kansas State to beat that. But I did say that was another one that I thought. I thought Cal might give Oregon a game today too. That didn't happen. That didn't happen. I'm trying to think
you also picked the Cornhuskers. I just like to point.
No, I didn't.
Ryan
I joked with you, and Ryan said to me today before the show, he goes, "Do you really think that Illinois, Nebraska can be on?" I said, "No."
Oh, okay.
I'm just messing with Sean. No, I don't think that. You know what? I don't remember what my upset pick was. I may have picked Nebraska on my upset just to mess with you, and then I'm gonna be upset with myself. Let's see. What do we call it? The upset week 9, right? Is that what it was? Let me go find out. I don't remember what my pick was for this week. I did pick Nebraska over Illinois just to mess with you. So yeah, I did do that one. That was a dumb pick. Yeah, but Ryan asked me. You can ask Ryan, Sean. He said before he gets, "Do you really think Illinois can beat or Nebraska can beat them?" I said, "No, I don't think they can beat them. They barely beat Rutgers. You know what I mean? Like they beat Indiana and Rutgers and lost to Purdue. Like no, I don't think they can." What was the other upset picks this week? Sean, you had Texas A&M or Ole Miss? Is that tonight?
That's tonight.
And Andrew McDonough had Northwestern over Iowa. That didn't go well.
No.
Yeah. Ryan had North Texas over Western Kentucky. Was that a night game too? No, North Texas is killing Western Kentucky right now. So Ryan's going to get that one right. Western Kentucky was a 10-point favorite. It's 33-13 right now. And then Sean Stiers had Missouri beating South Carolina, and they are currently beating them 23-10. So yeah. So we had our staff had some really good upset picks this week, fellas. Really good upset picks this week.
Who knew?
All right, Zach, and Notre Dame we all picked Notre Dame to upset.
That's true.
Upset Syracuse today. So there we go.
That is true.
Zach Martin said, "Is TCU being 8-0 or Oklahoma State getting shut out against Kansas State more surprising?" I think TCU, because to me, the shutout's just a bad game.
Mm-hmm.
TCU being undefeated means week after week after week, and anytime like somebody says, what's more impressive, like a guy that has like a 5 home run game, which I don't think it still has never been done before, right? Would that be more impressive, or a guy that or the fact that Hank Aaron had over 700 home runs and never hit 50,
right?
Never hit 50 home runs.
That's just consistent.
Right? To me, it's the sustainability of the greatness is always the more impressive thing for me. Like that's more impressive than, setting the single season record, for example.
Yeah.
It's you were great year after year after year after year after year for a long time. So on a smaller scale, a team that's winning week after week after week, and we didn't think they were going to be able to win like that, is the more impressive thing.
Yeah.
And the more surprising thing as well to me. David Kish with a super chat. Should we offer to play at Clemson? David, I joked about this, and you can ask Ryan. I said this to him and his dad when we were walking on stadium. I said, if I'm Jack Swarbrick, I'm on the phone calling Clemson's AD saying, "Hey, let's trade. We'll go to your place this year because Notre Dame and Clemson play next year as well. Y'all come to our place next year, but we won't play you at Clemson next week. Right? Let's flip it. Let's do it.
There's plenty of high school stadiums that are open, over the weekend.
Guys, I don't get it. I don't get why this team is so good away from home. I do not understand it, but they are. They're just they're much better away from home. And they're proved to 5-3 and 5-3, and it was a much needed win. Patrick Flanagan, please, ticket holders, do not make next Saturday another Nebraska 2000 or Georgia 2017. Sure hope that's true, but I have a feeling if that's going to happen, it has already happened, unfortunately. So, yeah. I hope there's a lot of green and blue.
There's going to be a lot of orange. I'm sorry.
I know.
It's going to happen just because of the way the season's gone. If Notre Dame was better.
But that's no excuse.
I'm not saying that it is, but I'm saying that's the reality.
The other thing, too, is Clemson fans were denied their opportunity to get this moment 2 years ago.
That is also true.
Because of COVID. So
I was denied the moment, too. That's why I'm guarantee I'll be there.
I made it up to you and let you have the Syracuse game later in the South Florida game earlier in the year. If Vince just said so many things with no words just now.
Hey, if I'm in your shoes, I'm doing the exact same thing because we were only allowed one person in the press box that year.
Yeah.
I'm doing the exact same thing, man. But
Yep. I get it. Don't blame me. Don't blame the people that had the stupid rule.
I know.
So anyway, Relly Q with super chat. Props to Harry Heastan then on this O-line and helping the running game. Does Notre Dame have the talent to pound the rock and outmuscle the rest of their schedule? Yes, but only if they add a bit more to the run game, fellas. I don't think they can just A-gap run all game against Clemson. But yes, Navy, they can do exactly what they did today and run for 300 yards on Navy. They can do exactly what they did today and run for over 2 bills against Boston College. Mm-hmm. They do exactly what they did today and run for over 200 yards against USC. Will they beat USC? That's a different question.
Sure.
Because you're going to have to complete some passes, right? But yes, Clemson's a different story because Clemson's dudes in the front seven. Flat out dudes. And you're going to have something to mess with their eye discipline. So you're going to need a different type of game plan, but the philosophy of pounding the rock and out muscling them, yes, I think Notre Dame's capable of doing that to Clemson next week. I do. Like doing it like it looked like today. No, I don't see that. I'll tell you this: if they make Clemson's D line and front seven look like Syracuse's today, which I do not think is going to happen, I do not expect that. Then Harry Heastan deserves a humongous raise, and he is the Broyles Award winner.
Then they just need
because
to FedEx,
that is a talented front seven.
They just need to FedEx the Joe Moore Award winner, trophy to the Goog the next day.
Yes, yes. Like, hey, we're just going to go ahead and we're going to call this race early. Okay, we're going to call this one early. Okay. Charlie Weiss's last belt loop. Appreciate the super chat, buddy. He says a lot of potential can come from this win. I felt there were some things that need to be fixed going forward. Tobias catches that catch great. Yeah, I don't put that on Tobias. That was a bad ball. That was a good defense in a late ball.
Yeah.
But maybe moving forward, he gets in the weight room, he'll catch that ball. But I don't. As a receivers coach, I wouldn't put that one on Tobias.
Yeah.
But here's the thing I like about today's game that Charlie hit on. There was a lot to clean up from today's game.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Like, this was not anywhere in the same this was in the universe of playing to your full potential. Not even close. Not even close. Your quarterback went 9 of 19 for 116 yards, and 37 of those yards came on one pass.
Yeah.
There's a lot to clean up, and they still dominated.
Yeah.
That's almost the best part about today. Like, if they'd have won 41-24, like, man, they played as good as they could have played. I'm like, I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah.
There's still a lot more improvement for this team to make. And that's where you want to be as a coach, right? When you can pop into film and say, look how we dominated this team, guys, and there's a lot we got to get better at.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly where you want to be as a coach.
Yeah, no doubt.
Matt Calthin says, did Freeman put more people in the booth? In other games, it was always just Tommy and one GA and Tyler Buckner. I don't know what this is in reference to. Do you guys have any idea what this is in reference to?
Well,
it was just a small box.
Yeah.
It was a really small box, so it looked crowded.
I mean,
Yeah. Well, aren't the offense and defensive coaches at home games also in different boxes?
I don't think so. No, I think they're all
at
in
home?
the same one. But I don't know that for 100% because I haven't seen the new setup because they're on the opposite side of us. Yeah. But it was just a cramped box, and so they were like stacked on top of each other, so it just looked more full. I don't think that was the case. I think it's the same as it's always been. But I will also say it must have been cramped because Tommy came out of the box and was on the field. And I don't think that was an accident. I don't think that was because of the way they were playing. I think he's like, you know what? I'm out.
Yeah. You guys, somebody didn't shower today.
Yeah. Because it was a guy standing like right behind him. There was no
this dude hanging over me didn't brush his teeth today. I'm out. I'm out. It's 41-24. I'm out. Michael Ryan with a super chat. Thank you so much, Michael. Hey guys, great show. Really enjoy the banter. Yeah, it's a lot more fun when they win. It's a lot more, and they play well in a win. That's the thing. It's like Sean and I were like, man, I don't even want to do the show. We had that conversation before the show. Like, I don't even want to do a show today because I don't want to keep repeating the same stuff over and over again. And and not enjoying a win because it was not an enjoyable win. Today was an enjoyable win. Like this is Notre Dame football. Beat them up, and a good team. A team that's not inferior to you to the degree that UNLV was.
Correct.
Milton Fan with a super chat. Win feels great. You guys do a great job. Thank you. No hard feelings, Vince, even though my kids are now in tears because of the letdown. Totally kidding. Dang.
Wow.
He hit you with his kids are crying because you didn't give him the caveman voice.
That's harsh.
just tell your kids they need to learn patience. This is a good teachable moment. They need to learn patience. They'll get it this week from Vince, maybe on Monday.
I know he's joking around, which I totally love and appreciate. And Milton is a regular in our shows at night, so appreciate him very much.
Yeah, we love Milton. There's no doubt. All right. We have another one from Alan Watson with a super chat. Thank you, Alan. Can we get Steve Angeli more playing time? I thought that linebacker killed Drew.
They got him in at the end of the game, and I think normally that doesn't happen.
So, Sean, let me ask you a question, because you said – so I wasn't looking at that moment. So is it just because you saw him yell down to Tommy and then immediately Angeli – is that what made you say that was Marcus's call to put him in the game?
No, it was the way it was shot on TV. It was like, yo, who is he yelling at? And then you see Angeli come into the game, and then you see Drew Pine standing next to Tommy in that direction, and it's like, oh, okay. Like, he's get him out of there. Like, we got this wrapped up. Get him out.
Right.
So,
I wish they'd have let him throw, honestly. I really wish they'd have let him throw. Yeah. I do. I would say that he's going to have to throw a pass at some point in time. You know,
think so.
Not throw a bomb, throw a comeback, get a bootleg or something.
Yeah, something simple. A simple throw. A screen.
Yeah, not a running up the score, play action, double move, throwback thing. Yeah, I got it. Yeah, not what happened to y'all, Vince. It's just like
That's funny that I was thinking that exact same thing. I was like,
exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. Hugh Murtha with a super sticker. Hugh, thank you very, very, very much. Vince, can you see if maybe there was a question after that, just in case there was he tried to ask a question as well? Otherwise, if it's just a super sticker, we appreciate you very, very, very much. Johnny Jimenez says, I'm sorry, go Irish Super Show. Love the analysis. Thank you, Hugh. We appreciate that very much. And we met several Irish Breakdown fans today. It was so great to see people. Had people coming up in the press box and got to take a picture with some fans, which is awesome.
Nice.
So we just love it. It's that stuff didn't happen a couple years ago. It's kind of this year is the first time. Every time Vince goes out in public, somebody says something, and we appreciate it. Right?
Vince is a superstar.
Yeah.
Oh, there's no doubt. He's a superstar.
I did want to tell the story that last night when I was at the high school game and I was monitoring the student section,
Fort Wayne Carroll game.
Yep, and I was monitoring the student section, doing my job, freezing my butt off. Somebody comes up, is like, "Are you Vince?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Love the podcast, man. Love it. I'm like, "All right, man, thanks." Shook his hand, thanked him for listening. It was awesome. Took the sting out of that loss last night, so that was good.
Yeah.
Look at you. You always just edging it on Vince.
The Vince. The Vince. Are you the Vince? From Irish Breakdown, the Vince?
That is not what I say. You guys are putting words in my mouth.
No, I'm saying that. But it was great. It was great. It was great to see the people today. It was great to see Irish Breakdown fans, and it just speaks to the community we have, which I love so much. It really was a lot of fun. It really was a lot of fun. Last couple, Johnny Jimenez says, coming from Texas to cheer the Irish, Notre Dame by 1,000,000. Well, Johnny, if you're coming next week, we're gonna have a tailgate. So Sean and I had a little deal. So Sean's gonna be there tomorrow too. Sean's got some decisions he's got to make about the tailgate for next week.
I do.
But I got to let my mom know what's coming for you.
Okay.
All right. So he's got to make some food choices. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see what he does. I have to find out maybe tomorrow. So see, look at him licking his lips, just thinking about it. Right.
Yeah.
But Johnny, we hope we get a chance to meet you. We'll be at the tailgate tomorrow. And then Milton fan 15. At least we can say that Drew Pine is a tough kid. There is no doubt about that.
I will never, ever challenge Drew Pine as a tough kid, or as a competitor, or as a leader. None of that. That is all asked and answered, man. Like,
it's got to execute.
Yeah, exactly.
Got to execute. Simple as that. Mark E. Stewart. I'll let you guys kind of handle this one because I'm not sure which play he's talking about. Maybe the early slide pass, but Mark E. Stewart says, why is Cam Hart having struggling tackling in open field? The times in the past this season, it's been out of control. I'm not sure what play he's referring to today. Was
he the one that missed the tackle? It was a third down play
on the first drive, the first touchdown drive that they had.
It was a screen, and he had an opportunity to make the tackle and didn't. That's the only tackle he missed today, though.
And that I talked to people on social media during the game about that play. I was more upset about the linebacker flow wasn't there. It's like linebackers have to flow inside out. on that screenplay.
And Ramon Henderson played it
Ramon Henderson plays it awful. That was his man coming across. He gets caught up and doesn't get out there and pursue. If he just comes straight down the line, he meets that guy at like 4 or 5 yards and makes the tackle.
Yeah.
And then Cam tried to avoid his man that was coming to block him and tried to make a play as he went by, and the guy made a play and went inside of him. I mean, it wasn't like he was head up with the guy. Cam avoided the block, tried to make the tackle, and the guy cut back on him. So I can't. Yeah, I would have loved for him to make a spectacular play. That's exactly what it would have been if he had made the tackle.
It would have been
a really great play, but like you said, I think Henderson just played it bad, and the linebackers didn't flow.
When a player struggles that way, it's going to happen. I mean, now all of a sudden, every time it's in a situation where it couldn't look like that, you're going to assume it was. I've seen a lot of people say Benjamin Morrison got abused today. Got beat a couple times. He also made a lot of plays today too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean,
and one I don't even put on him because I think he was told to line up that way, and he gave up his inside. I don't even put that on him. You were beat before the play was
we think he was. He may have not had the coverage right, and
that's fair.
You know what I mean. But
like he was beat before the ball was even snapped.
He got beat once deep, but that was a well thrown ball. I mean, I thought he also had several good plays as well. It's going to happen to a young kid.
I thought Cam was really
against
good.
Cam was good. Yeah,
he should have had an interception. He anticipated a route, jumped it.
Houston had a missed tackle on a play he should have made, but other than that, he was solid. And I don't know what DJ's. DJ's had a rough few games in a row now in space.
Yeah,
he really has. They were able to avoid a little bit. I thought Xavier Watts was solid today, from what I saw. I thought he was pretty good today too. But yeah, secondary got beat a couple times, a couple blown coverages, but there's also a lot of plays because the thing is, y'all can't see the stuff that's not on TV. Like y'all don't see how many times they tried to go at Benjamin and he just locked the dude down, which is why the quarterback ended up scrambling. Right. And so no, he got beat a couple times today. It's a lesson learned for him, but he also made some play. I mean, he was in great coverage on the interception, the second Brandon Joseph interception. And that kid didn't have a chance to make that catch, even if Brandon wasn't there.
He's a true freshman playing bump and run primarily 80% of the time.
Which says a lot about what the Notre Dame coaching staff thinks of him. Because they just put him on an island.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot. So, but things like that. Sometimes you need games like today because it's a teachable moment. Like, hey, you got to transition better here. Hey, you were misaligned. Like, yes, you're playing this way with this. Like, here's an example. Like the play we're talking about, right? Maybe they want him to open up that way, but he's only supposed to open up that way from inside leverage. He was lined up with outside leverage.
Right.
I'm just like hypothetically speaking, right?
Absolutely.
And so if you open up that way with inside leverage, it's going to differ because you're opening up that way to take away the inside and then play the outside breaking route, right? I mean, there are things like that where maybe he was misaligned, where you got to learn that stuff better. But when he just lines up and plays, man, he is really good.
Sure.
Really good.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand the pickle you're in there if you're going to go man coverage, because if you play him inside and press, then you just throwing a fade route to a 6'5" kid who's really good catching fade routes.
Yeah.
And then you go man. It's like, so you almost kind of say, like, maybe you shouldn't go cover zero there. That's just a thought, because it usually doesn't work out really well for you. But anyway, well, that's going to do it for today's show, fellas. And I want to thank everybody for being with us. Thank you for the super chats, but thanks to everybody who's on the show today. Good win today, fellas, right? As a coach, there's definitely plenty of stuff to clean up. I still have a lot. The offensive game plan for me still leaves a lot to be desired, but it was better. But, man, we saw the O-line dominate. The running backs were fantastic. The D-line made a ton of plays. The special teams were fantastic.
Yeah.
And, Sean, I think you nailed it. I think and hope that this is truly that moment that you and I discussed a couple weeks ago that Marcus Freeman put his stamp on this football team.
Yep.
And if they can now build on that, then this finish to this season could be a lot of fun. But we're going to have a lot to talk about. I'm not sure right now. It just depends on my travel plans, whether I can get back. Right now, I think the plan is that Vince and I are going to do the show on Monday night. Is the plan as of right now. Does that work for you, Vince? So I got an 8-hour drive to make tomorrow. So I'd rather not rush to put some clips together. So we'll be able to watch the film. So we won't have a show tomorrow, at least not a planned show tomorrow as of right now. And then Monday, that wasn't a tease, but if I decide to, record something in a hotel for 15 minutes,
talk, because Monday is Halloween.
It is Halloween? It's 8 o'clock. Aren't the kids supposed to be back? You guys still handing out
I'll be all
candy?
hopped up on candy at that point. Shoot.
Well, we'll see. Maybe Ryan and I'll do it.
Noise.
Well, no, Ryan's got a 1-year-old too. We'll figure it out.
We'll talk about it.
But we'll be back Monday. Ryan and Sean will have their recruiting show on Monday, and then of course we'll be back to preview Clemson. Big week coming up, fellas. But you needed this win to get to next week,
absolutely.
Right? So step one, you got right, and then we got a couple super chats here real quick. I felt bad for the Williams kid today, and with the ankle injury, it looks like. And then Tom DeMay with a super chat says, just thanks for the great show and great content throughout the week. You guys all do a great job. We appreciate that, Tom, very much. And Tyler, thank you for all your super chats today. Guys, great job today. Wonderful job. Enjoyed doing the show today, and it's a lot more fun to do these shows when Notre Dame gets a win. So for Sean and Vince, I'm Brian. You all have a great rest of your day. Enjoy that Notre Dame victory. We can worry about Clemson on Tuesday, right? We're going to have that 24-hour rule where you are ordered to enjoy this win because this was a very good win. So have a great day, everybody, and we'll talk to you again soon. Thank you for joining us on the Irish Breakdown Podcast.